Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brewbuilt X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brewbuilt Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big Pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brewbuilt line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brewbuilt X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brewbuilt Conicals. You can trust Brewbuilt with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brewbuilt at morebeer.com.
Home brewers, craft brewers, beer lovers, beer drinkers.
Get ready for an all-new experience in information exchange and beer culture.
Your only source for live beer radio that brings expert brewers from around the globe
right to your home.
You're not just listening to broadcasters, it's the Brewcasters
on the Brewing Network.
Good evening and welcome to the Brewing Network. It's the Sunday show with the Brewcasters, and today it's almost singular. There's only 2 of us so far.
Which is not singular then.
It's almost, though.
Almost singular. We got California by our own co-host.
Yes. We're going to use that term. It's going to storm the nation.
California?
Yeah, nobody knows what it is.
Really?
Yeah.
It happens to us quite a bit.
It's one of many terms invented here on the Brewing Network. California.
It is.
Been using it for a while. California, for you folks that don't know, we're going to explain. You can use it all over the country. You don't have to be in California to use it. It's California'd because people in California do it more than any other place on earth.
I think so.
And that is when they tell you they're going to do something. And they really say it. Like, they don't say maybe. They go, oh yeah, that sounds great. I'll be there. Or yeah, I'll do that. And then they just... And it doesn't, it's like it was never said.
They just don't show up.
And it's not just they don't show up, it's that the next time you see them, they don't even say, oh, hey, sorry, I missed you that time. It's like as if it never happened.
Exactly, and they don't even call. So this weekend was very rough on us. Not only did we get California yesterday by our old
Twice.
John.
Yeah.
He was supposed to come over with his Doppelbock.
California all over the place.
All weekend long.
Today we actually haven't been California. I think I remember, Dr. Scott's not yet in the studio, and I think actually now I'm remembering of a conversation with him. We probably were both drunk where he said he was going to be a little late today.
Is that right?
But that's a vague memory that I might have invented in order to protect Dr. Scott. I can't remember.
I knock on wood.
But we do have, I'll tell you what, a groundbreaking show for you today. A couple of interesting things have happened today. Daniela, one of them you don't even know yet. But I'm telling you, it's as if the world has turned upside down. All right?
What?
And I'm going to tell you why.
Tell me.
On today's show, I will be giving a chemistry lesson. Yeah.
Wow, it just felt hell freezing.
How weird is that? I'm actually running a discussion today.
How would you do that?
About a chemical process in beer. We're going to be talking about mostly unfermentable sugars, but fermentable and unfermentable sugars. And I will be running the discussion.
Hang on a moment. Didn't you fail chemistry?
I did, twice. Maybe 3 times now that I think about it, because I think I failed it twice in high school and once in college.
But it still is that you think you can run a discussion about chemistry.
You wait.
I wait.
I'm telling you, it's groundbreaking.
It's kind of hot.
The other groundbreaking thing that's happened is I just received it in my email just 5 minutes before the show. I've been invited to sit on a tasting panel.
What? Tasting what?
Barley wines.
Invited by whom?
I'm not going to say because I don't want to throw them under the bus for being dumb enough to invite me to sit on a panel.
Is it in this area?
Yeah. But it's a legitimate panel of, it's not the big barley wine festival. I mean, let's not get crazy.
Is it not going to Alaska?
No. And it's not the Toronado one either. But, It's a real panel, and the person said, I'd love to have you sit on the judging panel.
Man, they must have had an issue finding people who are willing to donate their time.
I know. Hell is freezing over.
Are you sure they want you and not just an employee of the Brewing Network?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Wow.
They said Justin on the thing. I read it twice. It's very strange. Hey, Bub, you're on the air. What's happening?
I figured you needed another brewcaster until Don gets there.
Yeah, you know one? I'm sorry, Bub. I'm just messing with you.
Time is running, Bub. What do you have to say?
Hey, no, poor Bub is sober this week.
I know.
Unless you had the kid already.
I'm sober as a judge.
Yeah, this guy, he's only allowed 2 beers per night because it's baby time for Bub. Or almost
Any
baby
minute.
time. Is that right?
Any minute. I could probably reach in there and grab it if I wanted to.
You grab it just right by the head, huh?
Grab it by the hair, like by the ponytail, and just yank it out.
Now let's be honest here, Bub. You excited about this happening or what?
I was more until I figured, I gotta wake up and change diapers again, and that's gonna kind of suck. But other than that, yeah.
Then you're excited. All right. Have we got?
this one's a boy, so I can, do boy things with it, like shooting things
and looking at Playboy.
Right.
That's pretty
There's
cool.
an excuse.
Actually.
Oh, I got to renew the subscription now.
You can thank me later. Beer Bear, you're on the line. What's happening, my brother?
Not much, dude. I was just calling to see if this phone worked. I was testing my new phone.
You're an ass. That works beautiful. I can hear you fine. Thank you for calling AT&T. All right, Beer Bear.
Bye.
What a dick.
Beer Bear's a tool.
Yeah. So here's what's happening. We are waiting for Doc to come in. And now, while I am running this chemistry discussion today, I will say this: if Doc doesn't show up, we're all in trouble because I am prepared, and I'm feeling good about it. With that being said, it's no secret that I need Doc here to fill in the blanks.
So with being prepared, you mean you have a bunch of questions in front of you for Doc?
No, I'm telling you, when I said that a lot of things are happening on this show that's turned the world upside down, I mean it. I have information today, not just questions.
Wow.
How about that? Now, let's be honest here. I didn't go out and discover this stuff on my own. It's readily available in books. I just read those books. And I put a general discussion together for us. And it's part of actually, we're doing kind of a series over the next few weeks. And,
right.
And, they're loosely related. I mean, in my head, they fit together perfectly. In yours, it's probably going to sound like it's not even a chain of events. But here's what we've done. I've set up a couple of things for the next 2 weeks, and I'm excited about these 2 shows, both today and next week. What we've done is sort of an extras show. Okay? So we've covered brewing basics. Well, now we're going to cover some things that you could add to your beer, but you don't necessarily have to. Okay, so that's today. We're going to be covering fermentables that you could add to your beer to boost it for various reasons, but you don't have to. So it's kind of an extras thing. And next week's going to be a great show, by the way. It's going to coincide a little bit with our frugal brewer topic that we did a while back that everyone really liked. And that one, we're going to Chris Graham in here, and we're going to talk about equipment that you could use, stuff that will really help your setup in various ways, but that you don't need, so that we can help you figure out how to spend your money wisely.
Right.
So we're going to be talking.
I would have been better for that show.
Yeah, you think so? About how to spend your money wisely?
I can fake this one, but that show I would have been a lot better for.
But that show you're in
how to blow money that you don't have.
Yeah, exactly. You're good at that. Well,
sure.
It's going to cover things like, that some people consider requirements, but they really aren't if you go out of the basics. So we're going to be talking about wort chillers and pumps and all the different kind of conicals, exactly, all the kind of different gadgets that you could throw in there, and we really want to help you choose, where to waste your money, as Bub puts it. So I'm excited about next week's show, and then this week's show, like I said, is going to be covering things that you don't have to put in your beer, but you could do. All right?
Are we talking like fruits? Are we talking rice sugar?
Yes.
Corn sugar?
Yes, and yes, and yes. Lots of different things, and I got it all lined up.
Lemon in the hef?
Yes. No. That's ridiculous.
I caught you.
You did. Yeah, shame on you. So we got things like that going on. I think what do we got? JP on the line?
We have JP.
JP, what's happening?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, aren't you like at a 90210 party tonight or something?
Yeah, it's the 10th anniversary reunion, and I hear Dylan looks pretty good, so I just kind of wanted to see that.
No, you are. You're like at a TV show party, right?
24, baby. It's the season premiere.
So you got like all your little gay friends over?
No, they're coming. I'm about to make some hot wings, and I got the rub on the tri-tip, and yeah.
I bet you do.
I was rubbing my meat. Hey, the reason I'm calling in.
Yeah.
I got a new doorbell. I want to make sure it works. How's this sound?
Wow.
Beautiful, JP. Sounds great.
It really works well. It works great.
Good.
Thank you for calling Home Improvement Hour.
You're very welcome.
JP, are you wearing the gift I brought for you from Germany?
No, I'm not.
You're not?
What'd you bring him?
Should I wear it right now?
You brought him a dirndl?
I'm not erect yet, though. I can't really...
I see.
All right.
Oh, yeah, the other one.
Your doorbell works fine, JP. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys. Later.
Take care. Wow. What's happening?
I was going to ask him if that was a 12-volt doorbell.
You see what happens? A brewing legend, John Palmer, calls in to test one thing. And because he can do it, now everybody can test everything.
Which is kind of true.
Yeah. You know, people are going to be like, I'm using a new meat knife. How does it sound?
Zipper.
Well, we're a very personable network, so that's fine.
Glad that we can help.
Why is Boop still on the line?
I think I started that with testing my turlet.
Your turret.
Oh, his toilet?
Yeah. All right, that's the Bub buzzer. All right, thanks, Bub.
All right, guys. Bye.
Night.
We'll be calling Bub back to help us out later if Doc never, makes it in. Because, it couldn't get worse than me, right?
It couldn't. The chat room thinks that the Stump the Brewer is going to be very easy tonight.
And can you even call it Stump the Brewer?
You could. Guess you've brewed, technically.
We are going to be talking about that in just a few minutes. Danielle and I brewed a beer yesterday, and pretty excited about how it's gone so far.
Yeah.
It might be the first one I haven't screwed up in a while. So
again, knock on wood.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. What do we got here? Shan Boone on the line. Doc Brew, what's happening?
Well, you guys said where you were missing Doc Brew there, so I thought I'd fill in.
We got Doc Brew from the forum, a different Doc.
And you sound like Jamil.
Yeah, you do sound like Jamil. What do you know about brewing? Anything?
Well, let's see. I've been brewing for about 13 years or so I think I got a couple brews under my belt.
You got a tip or two inside you, I'm sure.
Except it's really weird because I got my headphones on and I can hear the show in my ears, and I've got this serious thing going on.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You got Sirius radio in the what's happening here?
Oh yeah, I definitely have some serious radio going on.
All right, Doc Brew, I'm going to let you go. We'll be calling you back though if we need help later. I don't know what that means. I'm already confused, and I haven't even started my chemistry talk yet. It's very strange. 888-401-BEER is our phone number. You can Skype us at the Brewing Network, and we'll get you right on. Unless Doc shows up, don't ask any questions. Just call to say hi, because I've got my discussion prepared for you, but that's the extent of that.
You're doing just fine.
Thank you. We haven't started yet.
Don't sweat it yet.
Okay, I want to remind everybody to visit our Brewing Network store. There's still some shirts available there, and got some new ones on order. Some new designs too. We're working on a couple different things that I'm actually pretty excited about. I think they're going to be funny. Got some funny stuff coming out. So keep an eye on the Brewing Network store, plus podcasts that are there. There's one now, and that's our 1 hour boil with John Palmer, and some other things coming up. John Palmer's on our show in a few weeks, by the way.
That's amazing. I can't wait for that show.
I think it's the end of February. I think he's on with us. Also want to remind you to sign up for the Brewing Network newsletter. Just hit the newsletter button right there on our homepage, and it's an easy form. You put in your email and things like that, and we'll send you our newsletter once a month. And it lets you know what's going to be on the shows, what guests we have coming up. We put beer recipes in there, so that's kind of a cool thing. You get to
funny
cook
pictures.
With beer, put silly pictures. Jamil has his own segment there talking about brew tips that people ask him. It's kind of it's a Dear Abby sort of thing,
right.
But for Jamil. So you got that happening. And then the last thing that I want to update everybody on is just a quick reminder. Our Linda Stark fundraiser officially ended Friday at midnight. And the last leg now that doesn't mean that you can't keep donating for Linda, and we will obviously send those funds directly to her. Just all you have to do is there's a reason that There's a field when you hit the donate button that says like why you're donating. Just put Linda on that so we always know. And as long as you want to do that, we'll keep sending it. But our official fundraiser actually ended Friday at midnight, and the last leg of it was a 6-pack of Jamil's beer for everybody who donated $10 or more, and for everybody who donated $50 or more, your name goes into a hat to brew with Jamil. And if he's ever in your neck of the woods, if you're not out here, then he'll show up at your house and brew with you. Or if you're ever in our neck of the woods, you can go over to Jamil's house and brew. And we're going to announce those winners tomorrow morning during the Jamil show.
Exactly.
So we'll get that all lined up for you, and we again want to thank everybody for participating in that. We raised a lot of money, over $6,000 as a matter of fact, for Linda, and we're real proud of that, and we're real proud of you for stepping up and helping a fellow brewer in a good cause, and just a fellow human being. That's a great thing to do. So we appreciate all of that. Our fundraisers are officially over, but like we said, feel free to donate if you put Linda's name on it. We will make sure that it gets over to her. All right, and I think that about covers that for us. And I'll still keep you updated in our forum about what's going on with Linda as I get those updates. So you can just go to thebrewingnetwork.com/forum. I think it's PHBB or some crap like that. Hit the forum button on our homepage. And you can always find out information not only about the Brewing Network, but I'll keep posting what's happening with Linda as I get those updates too. All right? Now, real quick, I wanted to discuss our brew yesterday.
Yes.
So, we wanted to brew, but it's ass cold outside, so we didn't want to be out there for 8 hours.
It really is, and as a matter of fact, we always get started late, so by 4 p.m. in the afternoon, you can't really brew right now outside anymore. It's like in the 30s right now in California.
Which, for me, might as well be Antarctica. I mean, once you get below 50.
Well, in Californian houses, it feels like it because you have no insulation, nothing.
Yeah.
So it's pretty bad.
So, all that sissy complaining aside, we wanted to get a brew done anyway, so even though we've been doing all grain for a while, with moderate success, we decided to throw together a quick extract batch yesterday. And now I kind of know why. When I first went all grain, I thought, people like Oz would say to me, yeah, I'm going to throw together a quick extract batch. And I kind of I was like, well, it's not too much more difficult to do all grain.
But it is.
Well, having gone back to extract yesterday, yeah, you really realize how much, we cut 2 hours out of our process. Mostly, it doesn't take everybody that much longer to do all grain.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just us?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and we're still learning the equipment that we have to.
Yeah, but all the cleaning that's involved and all doing that's like another 3 hours right there, the mash tuns and all that stuff. So I was happy not to have to deal with this ice cold water outside all the time yesterday.
So we threw together an extract batch.
It was good.
And it did cut down the time. And what we brewed was Jamil's Chocolate Hazelnut Porter. Mm-hmm. You can get a kit at Beer, More Beer. A few of Jamil's recipes, I think you can get a kit. And then, of course, you can get all his recipes if you listen to the Jamil show. He gives a recipe on every show for whatever style he's doing. So we did his Chocolate Hazelnut Porter. And I'll tell you what, so far it's come out real well.
It seems to be a beautiful recipe, really. The color is amazing on this beer.
Yeah.
And what's our OG?
So he calls for 1060 to 1065. Mm-hmm. And I'm usually pretty inaccurate with hitting my OGs.
You are.
Within, if I get within 10 points of what it's supposed to be, I'm pretty stoked.
I think you've never managed, actually.
No, I have.
Really?
Come on. I've done it, once or twice. And if I get within 10 points, I'm pretty stoked. Well, we hit 1066.
It's pretty good.
1 point over his range, and by the way, I'm always okay to go a little over.
Do you think that's my input?
Absolutely not.
Liar.
I think you had nothing. I don't even know if you were actually there yesterday.
You are lying.
So we hit our OG 1066. Real happy about that.
That's great. Yes.
We got some new equipment yesterday because we had been given some gift certificates to B3 for Christmas, and I got a pump system so I could do Jamil's Whirlpool chiller, which is essentially you still use your immersion chiller instead of a counterflow chiller, for example. But you circulate the wort out of the spigot on the bottom, and you put it up into you have to have a brass tube welded on to your immersion chiller, and it goes back then into the boil kettle, and it shoots it out of the tube in such a way that it also creates a whirlpool. So you're whirlpooling and chilling at the same time. Now, the problem is that we decided only to do 5 gallons, and our stupid little spout didn't reach all the way into our wort. We would have had to do 10 gallons so that the spout went down far enough. That was our big goof.
It was.
And by our, I mean mine, of course, because it was my idea.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
And I was worried about hot side aeration because I felt like maybe we still could do it, but then it was going to be spouting out like 4 inches above the hot wort, and I didn't want to do it. So we didn't actually get to use our pump very much. But we, regardless of that fact, we chilled down pretty quickly, and by the time we pitched, we were right at our fermentation temperature, which our desired temperature we use in the British Ale yeast. It's White Labs British Ale. That, I don't know if it's what Jamil's recipe called for, but it was what John recommended for us over at B3. So we used that, and we nailed it at 67 degrees. We pitched.
Which we've never done before, I think.
No, we've always pitched, I think, a little on the warm side.
Absolutely.
Or occasionally even on the real cold side, and then warmed it up. You know. But this, we got it to right at 67. It's right now sitting at 67, and hasn't started fermenting yet. But like, I guess our point here is, everything seems to have gone pretty damn smoothly.
Well, now you knock on wood.
Yeah,
well, I've tried it yesterday.
The carburetor's going to break right here on the carpet now that I said that.
It tasted good, too.
It tasted great.
Yeah.
So, let me read you some of the recipe just for fun, because you all are interested in Jamil's recipes, I'm sure, as I was. It's, like I said, it's an extract batch, so we used 8 pounds of English Light and a half a pound of light DME. Our grain was, now, a lot of, because it's a porter, a lot of steeping grains.
Absolutely.
So for a 5-gallon batch, we actually used really close to 5 pounds of steeping grains. And we used a pound of Munich, a pound of Crystal 40, a pound of Crystal 75, half a pound of Carapils, 3/4 pound of chocolate, and a half a pound of Black Patent. And that really colored the water quickly. I mean, it got dark very quickly.
Yeah.
Obviously, we steeped from the time that we turned on the heat till we got to 170 degrees, and pulled it out, and we had just a great color, great aroma even coming out, and then, of course, we added our extracts. For hops, 1 ounce of Kent Goldings for 60 minutes, 1 ounce of Willamette for 30 minutes, and 2 ounces of Willamette for the last minute. And in the last minute is also where we added 8 ounces of unsweetened chocolate powder. Seemed like a lot of chocolate powder at the time. In fact, we were tempted to call Jamil and ask, are we really supposed to put this much cocoa?
Or is that for 10 gallons?
Yeah.
But it was. I think it gave it a great taste of the beer.
It really did. So that was 8 ounces of unsweetened cocoa powder. Also affected the color, because it really gave it that, it looks like cocoa right now.
Right.
So the last thing we have to do is, after fermentation, the package also comes with 25 milliliters of hazelnut flavoring, which is like a hazelnut extract that we're supposed to add at bottling or kegging, and hence the hazelnut part of the hazelnut chocolate porter.
Yeah, it came out great. I was a little concerned about the high IBUs we had in this recipe. I think it pushed us up to 38, something like that, right, with the hops additions.
Yeah.
And to me, I usually brew...
No, it's higher than that.
It's even higher than that. Yeah. And I usually brew beers that are low in hops, and I don't like the bitter side too much of it.
Yeah.
But it tastes just fantastic, just how it came out, and I really hope it's going to be a nice, balanced beer.
That's right.
The recipe seems to be great.
Absolutely.
Good work, Jamil, like always.
Yep, it's a great recipe, so we're looking forward to trying that, and we'll keep you up to date. We just thought it'd be fun to give you a different story about my brewing, which may turn out to be a success.
Thank you for assisting yesterday, Justin.
F you. And with that, it's time for everybody's favorite part of the Sunday show, Daniela's World, Vigorously.
You know what I got for us?
You gotta let the song. What's happening in Daniela's World, Vigorously?
We got our first edition of the Beer Advocate magazine.
Ah, yes. All of you know about BeerAdvocate.com, a website that has been around for a long time and started, the same way we did, just doing it for fun and to help promote beer and to really just push beer forward. And anyway, now after they've been in existence for years, they come out with their own magazine,
right?
Which we signed up for their inaugural issue while we were at GABF. Wanted to help support.
Absolutely.
So that's part of your world?
Actually, yeah, that is my world today, because I was reading it all weekend long, and I thought I'd just give you guys a little review, a quick review about what I thought about about the magazine and what it contains of? You want to see it?
Yeah,
I think you haven't touched it yet.
Well, I did I thumbed through it briefly, so
right.
You actually read it.
So actually, for the Beer Advocate, for the website itself, it was started in 2000 by two brothers, the Ahlstrom brothers, Jeff and Todd. Mm-hmm. And they've always been subscribed to beer a lot. And
that's Todd if you speak English.
Todd.
Is it T-U-T?
No, it's T-O-D-D.
Yeah, thank you. Go on.
Todd. Is that right?
Well, you're saying it like King Tut.
Todd.
There you go.
There you go.
It's your world. You can say however you want.
Well, I say vigorously too, don't I? So, the website and the magazine, they're just operated by those two brothers, and they just put together this physical version now, basically, not of their website, but just all the information that the Beer Advocate should give out there. So far to date, over 7,000 beer enthusiasts have already subscribed to the magazine.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Good for them.
Very good for them. I'm really happy to read all their numbers. It's amazing, actually. The website, thebeeradvocate.com, is the largest online community for beer in the world. Mm. Every month, they welcome over 6 million page views.
6 million?
6 million.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. You know, when I met them at JBF when we signed up.
Right.
They looked at me like I was a moron. It's not their fault. They probably saw a lot of morons like me that day. But I said to them, hey, listen, I'm a big fan of your site. I steal from it all the time. Which by steal, I mean that they put up beer news and stuff, and it's there for everyone to use. And I use Beer Advocate all the time as a resource.
It's a fantastic website, and let me just tell you about the magazine. It's not too shabby either.
Uh-huh.
So the magazine's content wants to advocate beer through a unique exploration of beer style, culture, and respect. It does not only want to focus on one specific region. It will be U.S.-centric, though, especially in the beginning, with some international content added, because just for the matter, those guys are in the U.S., so of course it's going to be a little bit U.S.-centric.
Sure. I'm all right with that.
Well, me too. I mean, that's totally fine. It's a huge beer industry here. So that's what the magazine wants. Now, I went through and I just, what I have to say first about the layout, for example, just to review the magazine. The layout per se is fantastic. I really like the font is clear, the colors are just beautiful, and the photography that they have in there is really amazing too. They have some nice beer photography in there.
It's different than all the other magazines in the way that it looks.
I think it does.
I think that's good because it's easy to look the same.
It is very easy, and this magazine manages to be modern, but also to be just very personable at the same time. You know, like it's not an intimidating, weird, like fancy magazine. It's a beer magazine, and that's what it is. But it's still high class. So I really like just even the pages. Feel the paper. It's totally different than usually in magazines. It's very nice. So the layout gets 5 out of 5 Danielas Vigoros beers.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a new thing?
Yeah, I invented that.
Just now?
Just now.
All right, 5 out of 5 Vigoros beers.
You like that?
For the magazine, I like it. It's a good judging system.
Thank you so much. Now, of course, what's very important is the content, and I thought I would just browse through what the magazine features in this edition. I don't know if it's always going to be the same, but this one is strictly beer-related and very much dedicated to the consumer, I've noticed. So it's not like an industry magazine per se.
Okay.
It's really to you guys and girls out there. That's what it wants to educate.
All right.
So that I like a lot. It starts with beer news section, then goes over to an editorial shout out on defending your own beer, followed by beer events, an article about Y2 homebrew, a style profile of a Weizenbock, a profile about a professional microbrewer, questions and answers section. It features an article about cans.
Cans.
Yeah, you like that, huh?
Yeah.
I got your attention right away.
Yeah, I wasn't listening to the cans.
Our own Sean O'Sullivan is being quoted in there too.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that he's ours now.
Yeah, he's always been, hasn't he?
We've trademarked him.
Then it also has a food and beer section in there. Another big beer-related topic, very long article. And then also beer reviews, which I liked a lot.
Well, and that's important. Everybody who uses Beer Advocate knows that they're big because users in the community can post reviews on beer.
Right.
And it's how people get to find out, whether or not to go buy a beer, because you can see several people doing reviews. So keeping to that huge part of their site. In fact, I'm glad you brought it up because I'm looking through that part right now. Mm-hmm. There's pages of beer reviews.
Yeah.
I think it's let me see.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the reviews later on.
Okay. I'm looking at 6 pages right here.
Yes,
of reviews.
I think they reviewed over 20 beers just in this edition, which is amazing. You even learn about beers. I didn't know of many of those beers that even existed, you know?
Learn about new beers, yeah.
New beers. So it's very good. So the content, what they have in that edition.
Yeah.
per se gets 5 out of 5 Danielas Vigoros beers.
Content 5 out of 5 too.
Well, now if we go in detail of the content, so this is just what do they feature, it's such a various content. So let's go into the details. It was very important to me to see the news and event section because I always liked it. I like to keep updated on what's happening in the industry.
Yeah.
I like it a lot because it has domestic content but also some internationality in there. So it teaches you about international events and so on.
All right.
The articles are all very well written. They're not very technical. You can really read in between the lines that the person who writes for them, I don't know if it's the guys only or if they have writers, they are just beer fanatics.
Yeah.
You can tell by reading the article, they just love their beer and they love everything surrounding it. And even more, it seems to be a lifestyle. They really bring across this beer lifestyle in this magazine very well. So I like that.
If you're just tuning in, we're talking about Beer Advocate's new magazine.
Mm-hmm. So news, events, and how the articles are written, 5 out of 5.
Wow. What are you? These guys paying you or something?
No, I just love the magazine. I really do. Now, the beer reviews, they have a score system from A to F, with a minus and plus 2. So there's an A minus, there's a B plus, and so on. So they give school grades, right? That's American school grades.
Yes.
That's how they do it. And in this issue, as I said, they reviewed over 20 beers. It is a good mix. As you can tell, they have some new releases that they've reviewed, but also some older beers that have been around for a longer time. So I like that you learn about the new releases.
Yeah.
The descriptions are thorough with plenty of different aspects. For example, how the beer pours, the head retention, the color of the beer, how it's balanced, etc., etc.
As I'm looking through the reviews, I see that they've reviewed 2 beers from Michelob, which I'm not against. I'm just pointing out that they have Michelob's, Michelob has a Celebrate series. Michelob, by the way, is Anheuser-Busch. They have a Celebrate series. So they reviewed their chocolate and their vanilla oak.
Mm-hmm.
And the chocolate got a D.
Mm-hmm.
The vanilla oak got a C+.
There you go.
I've had my share of C+ in my day.
You've brewed your share of C+.
That's true, too. Go on, please.
So overall, you get good, solid information and recommendations for beers. Now, I myself find reviews always a little bit tricky. I always find them a little bit, sometimes they can be misleading to me. It's just a personal impression of a beer, despite the fact that they really try to stay as objective as you can.
Yeah.
You still will be influenced because you know what you're drinking.
Yeah.
So therefore, I only give 3 out of 5.
On their reviews.
3
out of 5 Vigoros beers.
3 out of 5 Danielas Vigoros beers. Now, the travel section, they have a travel section in this issue too. The article is good with it's about Belgium, traveling to Belgium. So the article is good with lots of information about the destination itself, where you can go, where the beer level would be, where you really don't want to miss out on going. It has all the addresses listed of the places with their website, so that's all really good information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get a very good first impression. Overall, this section receives 4 out of 5 Danielas Vigoros beers.
All right.
Now, of course, this magazine has advertising because the guys are...
Sure.
Of course,
you got to pay for it.
You got to pay for it. And I know a lot of people are very skeptical when it comes to that. That's why a lot of people won't go and buy magazines. But it's actually very moderate. I mean, just browse through it. First of all, it's all beer related. So you don't find any advertising that's not going to be of interest to you because it's beer content, right?
Yeah, there's kind of a lot of advertising.
Think so?
Yeah.
Well, but for a magazine, I think it's a good mix. I think it's fair what they have in there.
Well, for a guy like me who doesn't really read and I just look at pictures, there's a lot of the pictures are advertising. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, to me, as I read a lot of magazines and I know how much advertising they usually feature, it's really okay.
Because the last time I saw this many pictures, I was coloring. I had a coloring book.
And that was 2 hours ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So overall, this new magazine gets 4 out of 5 Danielas Vigoros beers. I can warmly recommend this magazine.
Okay.
As they say, can you pass it to me, please?
Sure.
Because they have a top 10 list in the beginning where they talk about why they now have to publish a magazine.
Didn't I invent the top 10 list?
No, you didn't.
Oh.
Number 1 is We Love Beer. Number 2 is Beer Deserves More Coverage and More Respect, and it goes on and goes on.
You're supposed to start at number 10, I think.
It doesn't matter. I'm not going to read you all of it.
Oh.
So those are the two very nice reasons I thought.
What was number 2?
Beer deserves more coverage and more respect.
And
it goes on and goes on. And then also, number 8, everybody needs a good read while they're on the crapper.
That should be closer to number 1. Had they done it in my top 10 list.
Yeah, you can subscribe to the magazine. I think they always have, they kind of have promotions going on every once in a while.
I'm sure you can just go to beeradvocate.com.
Beeradvocate.com. I mean, check it out. I really liked it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Now, by the way, lest you think that this is some marketing ploy, we literally just subscribed to this magazine.
We did.
Got it in the mail, and Daniela thought, it's really great. I want to talk about it. So, maybe these guys, though, won't look at me like I'm a big freak the next time I shake their hand and say, I like what you do.
Well, I doubt they even know that we're talking about it, but never mind.
Oh, I'll be telling them. You think we've ever mentioned anything on this show that I don't send an email and say, we talked about you?
Right. Well, I think the magazine is great because it doesn't geek out too much. It's not too technical, which I really enjoy. If it's a technical magazine, I won't read it anymore because I'm just not interested. I like to brew my beer, but I don't have to learn about all this background. It's just, you know what? It's almost a lifestyle magazine for beer.
Agreed.
A beer style life magazine.
I like it.
Me too.
I like it. That's a good Vigoros world, and I thank you for updating us.
My pleasure.
All right. I was going to do some news for you, but I'm going to cut it out because we got to take a pee break. We've been on for a half hour, and last week we went for, I think, 32 minutes without a pee break, and, we're lucky that people didn't send missiles our way. They were very angry that we would go on that long without taking a break. So today we are going to take a break. When we come back, I don't know, man, I want to get into this discussion.
Well, just do it. Just tell everybody not to ask questions.
All right, listen, for the first time ever, I'm going to tell you folks, you can go ahead and stop listening now. Go watch 24, like JP. The good doctor doesn't show up to fill in the blanks here soon. I got good information. I'm actually I'm not going to give you anything that's not false. Or, that's not false. Yeah, it's going to be a lot like that.
Well, just relax, have a homebrew.
But if you got questions in between, talk amongst yourselves. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the chat room who are more qualified than I. We're going to take a quick break. 888-401-BEER is our phone number if you want to call up and hang out with us. And when we come back, we are going to start talking about fermentables in your beer and what you can do to use them and why you're using them and a little chemistry behind the old sugar. All right? So hang in there. It's the Brewing Network. Give us just a couple minutes. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Brewcasters on the Brewing Network.
Hoping you might let me have some. Touch the fountain. I was hoping you might let me have some. Touch the fountain. Bring it in. 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 Touch the fountain. I was hoping you might let me have some. Touch the fountain. Bring it in. Touch the fountain. Touch the fountain. Touch the fountain. Bring it in. Touch the fountain. Touch the fountain.
It's gonna be butt jokes for the rest of the year.
I put my B-A-double-L's on your big ass double D's. I put my B-A-double-U-L's. I put my balls on your big titties. Now ladies do the limbo, 4 on the floor and
But when I asked him what those three initials stood for, he said Bartlesville beer, drink or something, that's what it means. Raise hell, drink beer, that's all there is to do around here. Get your kicks, chasing chicks, well, we do it every day of the year. He said, now one of these days I'm gonna leave this town, and you won't find me anywhere near. But for now, I keep raising hell and drinking beer. There wasn't much for a growing boy to do, except to drive around town with all of his friends on the weekends and go searching for a case of beer that wasn't free too. He used to drive around town in an old 1960 Corvair. Him and all his friends, they called themselves the BBD. But when I asked him what those three initials stood for, he said Bartlesville beer, drink or something, that's what it means. Raise hell, drink beer, that's all there is to do around here. Get your kicks, chasing chicks, well, we do it every day of the year. He said, now one of these days I'm gonna leave this town, and you won't find me anywhere near. But for now I keep raising hell and drinking beer. Yeah, but now I keep raising hell and drinking beer. Yeah, but now I keep raising hell and drinking beer.
And now back to the Brewcasters. The Brewcasters on the Brewing Network.
All right, welcome back to the Brewing Network, everybody. It's the Sunday show, and hell is actually about to freeze over.
It is. I can't wait.
Feels like it outside.
It's not that bad today.
Well, it goes hand in hand. Not only have I been asked to judge beer on an official panel.
I want to go too. I want to know what you have to say.
You can. It's all behind closed doors.
I can come?
Nope.
You're just making this up.
No, it's the way it works when you're an official judge.
Really?
You're not even allowed in the room if you don't have a badge.
Would you grab me an interview afterwards?
Nope.
Really?
No. Once I hit the big time, I am out of here. I'm leaving you folks behind. I'm a panel judge now.
Wow, watch out what you're saying.
What am I going to say in there? Tastes strong.
Biscuity is always good.
Yeah, I can say biscuity. Wow. That sure is a barley wine.
Just have Jamil on a little earplug.
Oh, that's a good idea. I just go, yeah, like I can talk back to him too. So Jamil, it's kind of fruity. All right, say this. Yeah, it's perfect.
See, I know how to help you.
That's how I'm going to do this chemistry discussion. I've actually got John Palmer in my earpiece.
Can you ask John to call in?
What do you think? I need help with this?
No, just because I like talking to him.
I love that everyone out there is like anxiously awaiting this ship to sink.
This ship ain't sinking, honey.
That's right. Like how Daniela's been in the U.S. long enough to use ain't in a sentence.
that's when it's time to leave, actually.
All right, 888-401-BEER is our number. You can call with questions, I'll see what I can do. I did speak to the good doctor. He's on his way. Hell actually did freeze over at his house, or at least his water. He lives on a ranch, and they don't have plumbing. They do in the house, but up to the house they don't, and I guess it freezes, and he's been working on it all day.
Right. I mean, I guess that makes sense because a few counties here in the Bay Area have declared state of emergency because of this cold weather.
What?
Yes. That's what I heard on the news the other day.
I thought I was the only one who declared my own state of emergency.
My German friend just said that's so ridiculous. It gets down to 38 degrees and they declare state of emergency.
Yeah.
But I asked the folks in Alaska what they think about it.
Yeah, they don't know anything up there. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Like I said at the beginning of the show, and just in case you're just tuning in now, we're doing a series over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be talking about the extra things in brewing. You can look back through our archive page and find all of the basics that you need to brew yourself a batch of beer. We've done a lot of basics shows, and we've even done some extras shows too, like adjuncts and different grains that you can use that aren't base malts. And so that's what we're doing again, is we're really covering the things that you could add to your beer, but you don't necessarily have to. And we just want to kind of expand your horizons. And in this particular discussion we're going to do today, I want you to understand the chemistry behind fermentable and unfermentable sugars, because it's pretty important. And the reason I want you to understand it is because I realized that I understand it. Which, as soon as I find something that I understand, I'm like, all right, these people need to know this, because if I can understand it, it's not so complicated. And fermentable sugars, it's a pretty basic thing, but I'm going to have to give you a little bit of a chemistry lesson so that you can understand it. And then next week we're going to be covering extras in equipment that you need. So we've talked about the basic equipment to get you started brewing. We're going to start talking about wort chillers and pumps and things like that. And Chris Graham from Beer, and More Beer is going to come in and give us a hand with that next week. And then in a couple of weeks later, we're actually going to be talking about adjuncts and specialty grains. So more things that you can add to your beer to get different characteristics. In some cases, for styles, you have to add them to your beer. And we're going to, that one actually Dr. Scott will be handling for you. Folks at home, I can't handle that one. That one's tough. And mostly because I've not used all of those. So I can go and read the book about that, but I think it's more important that, if you had to have tried it.
And I'm sure that Doc has used all of it.
Yes. Now, also with that being said, the lesson that I'm going to give you today about fermentable and unfermentable sugars, it's a lot of the stuff I haven't used either. The different things that you can add to boost the fermentability and different flavors in your beer, I've not used either. So I want you to use this discussion the same way I'm going to use it, and that's for us to gain a general understanding of what's happening and how to get certain characteristics, and then go out and experiment with it and use it. Because here's the bottom line. This information comes right out of books, okay? And the stuff is readily available. I just, sometimes I'm pretty good at summarizing things and making it manageable. And I feel like once it's manageable, then you can go out and experiment with it.
Absolutely. What books did you use?
Today's discussion is based almost entirely on Ray Daniels' Designing Great Beers.
Nice.
Which is, we've talked about, in fact, both these books I'm going to mention we've talked about thoroughly. This is Dr. Scott's favorite brewing book, I think. Designing Great Beers, I think he said, is his favorite deal. And that's by Ray Daniels. And it really covers everything about how to create your own recipe. As you're doing it, talks about the chemistry behind it, and much more. It even covers basics just about how to brew.
And this book I haven't read this book, but just the amount of how many times this book gets quoted.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's really the force out there, one of the forces.
And Ray knows what he's talking about. I mean, he's dedicated, and it comes through in the book. He's dedicated a lot of time to this. It's an older book, but it's really one of the things that it's certainly not out of date. And of course, that's available through the Brewers Association. It's a Brewers Association publication. And then the other book that I used, of course, my favorite book, everybody knows, is John Palmer's How to Brew. And the reason I like this book, I've said it before, is because it covers the basics. It puts everything in general terms that I can manage. And then if you want to, you can really dive into the chemistry part of it too. So I kind of combined the sections of fermentable sugars from both of these books and a few other resources I found on the net to kind of get you a summary about what's happening with your fermentables. So I definitely encourage you to A, remember that I'm summarizing from text that's out there, and B, go out and get these books if you need these kind of basics, because they're not hard to understand.
No, that sounds promising.
John's working on a new book, by the way.
Oh, is he?
I can't say anything else about it, but hopefully when he comes on the show in February, he'll tell us all about it.
Man, you're in the scene. You know those things now.
You see what's happening here?
I see what's happening.
All right. So here's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with the chemistry of sugar. All right? For those of you who are looking for a beer or a snooze, this is the time for you to tune in, because this will put a few of you to sleep. But you really need to know, a few things about sugar. So the basic that everybody knows is that, and by the way, let me give my last disclaimer of the night. If you know all this stuff, don't listen anymore. Hang out in the chat room, have yourself a good time, enjoy some beers. If you're a new brewer like I am, hang out with me, because we can learn this together and really kind of push our way through it. So fermentable sugars are essentially what we get from malt, and even when you're using extract, it's coming from malt, so that we can make alcohol and CO2 in our beer. All right, without fermentables, we'd all be in big trouble, because we'd be, drinking soda and water our entire lives, and there's nothing fun about that. So you need these fermentables. Now, what's important to know, and we've talked about it in lots of discussions here on the Brewing Network, is that there's a lot of unfermentable sugar out there too. And some of those things, they help your beer in certain quantities, and others you absolutely don't want. And it's really a matter of figuring out what's a fermentable sugar and what isn't, and what you want to leave behind and what you don't. And this discussion is designed to help us figure that out, because sometimes, you really don't want some of those unfermentable sugars in there, and like I said, other times you do. All right? So sugar, in essence, it's a pretty simple thing, but it is a compound. It's made up of many different compounds, some of which are non-fermentable. And the degree and nature of non-fermentable compounds that's left behind in the beer actually determines some of the flavor characteristics that it's going to impart on your finished product. So what that means is there are sugars that are 100% fermentable, and they don't leave behind any flavors whatsoever. They're turned into alcohol and CO2. All right, and those are the sugars that we're really getting our alcohol content from, and not changing the profile of our beer. Now, some of you might say, "Now, wait a second. Just by nature, the conversion of sugars and starches into this alcohol and CO2 is going to produce byproducts that are inherent in the flavor of a beer." That's not true. It's actually functions of the yeast that will produce those byproducts. But the sugars themselves, if it is a 100% fermentable sugar, it is not going to impart flavor on your beer. Now, that's important to know, because sometimes you just want to boost the gravity of your beer. Guys like you and me who feel like getting drunk every now and then.
That's just pathetic.
Occasionally. We'll like ourselves a big beer. And maybe you don't want to affect the flavor profile of the beer, while you do want to make it a 7 or 8% beer. And in those cases, you do want to use sugars that are 100% fermentable. Now, there's a couple stipulations to that, which I'm going to get to as we go through the discussion, because you can't just go throwing in sugar willy-nilly. You got to pay attention to this stuff. And by the way, willy-nilly is one of my favorite phrases. I'm going to use it a lot.
What does it even mean?
I think it's like you can't just not think about it. You can't just throw stuff in not thinking about what you're doing.
It's like the pop group Milli Vanilli?
Similar. Mm-hmm. They didn't think about anything they were doing either. So
I understand.
Yeah, it's very similar. So let me talk to you about the chemical makeup of sugar. All right? And it's important to know, because this is how you're going to figure out what sugars to use. Common brewing sugars are they're what are called hexoses, and they're made up of a ring of 5 carbons and 1 oxygen. We're talking about on the molecular level here, obviously. And a 6th carbon is actually attached to the side of the ring, often at 1/4. But in general, they're called hexoses. And the simplest sugars that are these hexoses are called monosaccharides, and they consist of one single hexose ring. These are things like glucose, fructose, galactose, and mannose. All right, got to remember all those names. Glucose is a good one to remember. Fructose is a good one to remember when you're talking about fruit sugars, and we're going to get into that a little bit later too, about how to add fruit to your beer as part of a fermentable process, and then of course flavor too. Among other structural variations is the configuration of oxygen and hydrogen atoms attached to each carbon that actually they determine the identity of each simple sugar molecule. So it's really how these things are configured that is going to to decide whether it's a glucose or a fructose or a galactose, okay? Because they're all the same monosaccharides. They just have this chemical makeup that varies and decides which one, they are. All right. When two monosaccharides join together, they create disaccharides. Okay. Not a big deal here, but these things are sucrose, lactose, and maltose. Now, if you don't remember anything I've said so far, I want you to remember maltose.
Okay.
Maltose is really important to brewers because maltose, it typically makes up about 40% of the total carbohydrates in beer. It's 40% of the fermentables that you want to get out of beer. All right. That's maltose.
I'm going to remember that one then.
Glucose, fructose, and sucrose, all right, they're also found in significant quantities, but should be, and are generally, less than 15%. All right, any dramatic increase over 15% will actually result in a decreased ability for yeast to process what you want it to process, which, like I said, is maltose. All right, so here's where we get to segue off into a little bit of fun. All right, because we're going to get to learn something that maybe sounds a little more reality-based than all this fructose, lactose, sucrose garbage that I'm throwing out at you. So let's talk about stuck fermentation. Very often, when your fermentation is stuck, which basically means maybe it fermented for a little while and never fermented completely out, the yeast seemed to go to sleep and drop out, before your beer was done. It still has a really high gravity. Now, there's your obvious reasons. Maybe your temperature got a little too cold and the yeast went to sleep and things of that nature, but all things being equal, you're fermenting at the proper fermentation. You've added the right yeast to your beer, and you still end up with a stuck fermentation. Well, this is likely because your glucose, fructose, and sucrose have actually increased over 15% of your fermentable sugars. So here's what happens. And a lot of this is directly from John Palmer. He does a great write-up of this in just a few paragraphs. All right. And really what happens is that monosaccharides, the very simple sugars, yeast tend to eat first, okay? So before it gets to the maltose, that's the stuff you really want it to eat, it's going to eat other things like glucose and fructose and sucrose. It likes to eat those first. If the concentration of those things is too high, which is over 15 to 20% in your beer, pretty much anything over 15%, if it's too high, you run the risk of the yeast eating those and never getting to the maltose. I don't know if it's that it considers itself well-fed and goes to sleep like I do when I'm stuffed, or if it's just a chemical reaction. But what can happen is if you end up with too much of any of these things, glucose, fructose, sucrose, in your beer, more than maltose, you could end up with a stuck fermentation. You can see, like I said, John Palmer's for a real breakdown of this. Sucrose is table sugar. Okay? It's a very simple sugar. And if your yeast has too much of that available, it's not going to get to the good stuff. All right. So I know I'm hammering that home. I just want you to know that maltose is the really good stuff. All right. 40% of your makeup. Are you following me here, Daniela?
Absolutely. I'm with you.
All right. I'm going to move forward. 3 monosaccharides together are trisaccharides. This isn't brain surgery here, folks. Maltotriose is one of them, which is 3 glucose molecules together. Now, maltotriose is fermentable by all beer yeast. All right? I don't know why you need to know that, but it's in the book, so I'm telling you. Melitose, which is also known as raffinose and melitriose, can only be fermented by lager yeast. Now, here's what I want to dock here for, because I want to ask him what impact that has on lager beer. That only the lager yeast can actually ferment the raffinose, the melitose, rather. So maybe when he gets here, if he gets here anytime soon, I will back us up and talk about why lager yeast can eat those and what it actually does to the beer. Okay, so we'll find out what that means. Now, 4 or more monosaccharides join together. John Palmer calls these, I'm assuming it's the general scientific term, oligosaccharides, which just means a lot, basically. And these are also known as dextrins, okay? And dextrins I know from Jamil, because he often talks about long chains of sugars that are not broken down, and he talks a lot when you're describing the body of beer of whether or not you have a dextrinous malt, for example, which is a much thicker malt that you'll get out of your mash, okay? Dextrins are not fermentable by brewer's yeast. Black and white, folks. Dextrins cannot be fermented by brewer's yeast. There's not that some brewer's yeast can do it and some can't. It's just not being fermented. Okay. So again, when Doc gets here, we're going to ask him cases that we actually desire dextrins, like when Jamil describes to us a dextrinous malt, things like that. We're going to find out why and how we're going to put those in there, and what makes the characteristics of a dextrinous beer. How's everybody doing? Danielle?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
I'm hanging on your lips.
What is the most important fermentable sugar?
Maltose.
Yes. All right.
That's hot, huh?
Very nice. Very nice. Glad that you got that.
Thank you.
I actually couldn't remember myself. I needed you to remind me.
That's why I'm the brain of this operation.
Okay. Now, we're going to talk about flavors from sugars. By the way, this is going to be the shortest show in the history of, because I'm going to get through this whole discussion. Doc's going to get here. We're going to give him a beer. We're going to go home. Yeah, it's going to be that.
Sounds good.
Because he's not even going to be caught up on the discussion. He's not going to know all of this information that I've imparted on people.
He might know the one or the other thing.
You think he knows maltose?
Maybe.
Hell, it's frozen over, folks. All right, as I said before, now we're going to talk about flavors from sugar. Fermentable sugars, if they're 100% fermentable, they don't leave behind any flavor. All right, they don't impart direct flavor impact. They're converted to alcohol and CO2. Sources of flavor come from the non-fermentable compounds that are found in these monosaccharides and disaccharides and trisaccharides. Those compounds, such as lactose. All right, lactose is a good example. Okay. Let's talk about a form of fermentable sugar that you can put in your beer that is almost entirely eaten by your yeast and does not impart any flavor, and that is corn sugar. All right? The solids in corn sugar, it's almost 99% glucose. All right? Corn sugar, it's when you talk about these compounds, you have to talk about the amount of solids that are in them. And it's really a very simple thing because they have solids and they have moisture. Okay? Now, the more solids they have, the more of those compounds are either fermentable or non-fermentable, okay? And in corn sugar, with its solid makeup, and it has very little moisture on top of that, the solids are 99% glucose. Now, glucose is a 100% fermentable sugar. The yeast eats it and puts out alcohol and CO2. That's it. So if you put corn sugar into your beer, what you're going to end up with is a higher alcohol content, a higher amount of fermentable sugars, and not a lot of residual flavor when the yeast eats those sugars. So a lot of people might think, hey, if I want that corn flavor that you find in a Budweiser, now let me stop for a second and say I don't know why the hell anybody would think that. But if you do want that corn flavor, you're not putting corn sugar in your beer to do that. You're actually putting in adjuncts like rice or even actually corn and maize and things like that. Those are adding that corn flavor. So Daniela, you like yourself a good Pilsner.
I do.
Pilsners have a bit of a corn flavor to them. Now it's not like eating a corn on the cob. That's not what I mean. But it has can you think of a Pilsner? I don't have one to serve you. Can you think of the flavor profile of a Pilsner and imagine that kind of that corn flavor?
Yeah, I got it memorized.
That's not because they threw corn sugar in there.
Well,
right?
they couldn't.
In Germany, no,
yeah.
Because that would be wrong and evil and against the
against the tradition.
That's the Reinheitsgebot. Okay, but my point here is just to hammer home that corn sugar would be something that you would add to your beer in order to increase its alcohol content, but you would not be adding flavor like a corn flavor. You'd have to get that from adjuncts. Now, I want to give you the reminder. Just because you want to boost the alcohol content of your beer doesn't mean that you create a recipe of all your base malts and your extra malts and everything else that you want and realize that the gravity's not high enough, so you chuck a bunch of corn sugar in there to make it more alcoholic. Because you got to remember what I said. Yeast is going to eat these simple sugars like glucose before it eats any of the other things. And if the concentration is too high, it's going to eat all that glucose and it's going to go to sleep. And you're going to end up with a stuck fermentation. You're going to end up with a beer that didn't fully ferment out. So if you had a 1060 or a 1070 beer and it ends up at 1050, guess what? It's not done fermenting. And you got a whole other host of problems in your beer now. You know, mainly that it's undrinkable.
And you dump it.
Well.
You should.
Yeah. I mean, other people dump it. If it's even got like 0.5% of alcohol, I'll give it a go.
Really?
Yeah, I'll still give it a little drink.
You're sick.
So, I want you to remember that just because you're adding these sugars, like corn sugar, you can't add too much. You don't want these other sugars that we're going to talk about to exceed 15% of your fermentable makeup. Because if they do, the yeast is going to go to sleep after it eats them and never get to the good stuff, which is what?
Maltose.
Maltose. That's right. Dr. Scott, welcome to the Brewing Network studio.
Oh my God.
Tough day?
Yes, it started early with no water.
Yeah.
All the pipes froze.
Right.
Down with the neighbor, dealing.
Yeah. Guess what? It's about to get tougher. I'm giving a chemistry lesson. I am. And I'll tell you what, I haven't gotten a phone call yet that says, shut up, douchebag,
No.
so I might even be on the right track.
I think you're doing awesome.
Good.
You have a summary underneath your outline there of what I've been talking about. Really quickly, Doc, I've already discussed the chemical makeup of sugars, monosaccharides, trisaccharides, oligosaccharides.
Oligo.
Thank you. Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
We're already as far as the bottom of your first page in starting to talk about how if a sugar is 100% fermentable, it's not going to impart flavors directly to your beer. You need sugars. If you want to impart flavors to your beer from the fermentables, you need sugars that leave the compounds behind that aren't fermentable.
Yep.
And that's what we're just about to start talking about. And I'm out of breath, Doc. By the way. Okay.
Good. All right.
Now that we've gone through all that, and since there are no questions, and by the way, I told them not to send me any questions, because I was like, listen, I got my outline, and that's that, folks. If it's not enough...
It's just my ass hanging out there on the line.
You're on your own. So now what I'd like to do is since we've talked about well, let me have you do this actually before we move on to sugars that are going to leave these flavor compounds behind. The only real example of a sugar I've given that is almost 100% fermentable that you can add is corn sugar.
Right.
What else is there that you could add to your beer?
There's invert sugar, which is basically sucrose that they add things to it. I think it's citric acid to invert it to a little bit different, so it's a little more digestible.
Yeah.
Most sugars are not too bad.
Okay.
If you put them in too much of a high percentage, you're going to get some that cidery, green apple-y kind of stuff to it.
Yeah.
So if you got a lot of other things going in your beer,
yeah,
and you put that in there, not so cool.
Okay.
I was listening to Vinny talk last night.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things he said was he actually likes to add corn sugar to his Pliny the Elder.
Really?
And most of his other things. Because he wants the beer dry.
Okay.
If even 2 points to him is ugly. So if he's at 214, 1014, he's a little bummed because it comes out a little bit too sweet.
Okay.
And it takes away from the hoppiness. He says balance is BS, basically.
All right.
He wants to have a very dry beer. So if he's starting out at 1072 or 1083, trying to get it, you can't have it at 1015.
Sure.
His magic number seems to be 1012.
1012. Okay.
And to get it down there, he wants to have some extra fermentables that are going to be actually ferment down and not leave that residual sweetness to it. So
corn sugar is his sugar of choice.
Yes.
Okay.
And he was also talking about when to put it in.
Okay.
And he likes to put it in at knockout or just before.
Okay.
In the boil kettle. He tried to put it in, later in the fermenter, and with the one beers that he was doing, it was an issue with that cidery kind of flavor coming through.
And that's definitely something that both of these books I've mentioned today that I've got my discussion from, both How to Brew and Designing Great Beers. It does talk about that. If you're using these simple sugars like that and putting too much of it in there, you are going to end up with that cidery kind of off flavor.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful. And now, the other part, Doc, that I was mentioning is, that the yeast will eat things like glucose first. And if their concentration makes up, say, more than 15% or so of your fermentables, you run the risk of a stuck fermentation because the yeast likes to eat those first and then go to sleep.
Yeah.
And this is again according to what I've read from How to Brew. So when you're adding corn sugar, like you're saying Vinny does, to boost that fermentable and get a dry finish, you still have to be careful of how much, right?
Right. He's only putting in, like he said, he only puts in so much. Otherwise, it tastes like Dad's homebrew.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers.
Moonshine homebrew.
Yeah. That nasty little flavor nastiness.
Okay.
And so you can't just keep put 40% in.
Yeah.
and especially in the boil kettle, you just can't do that.
That's right.
Although I've tasted a lot of beers, Belgians mostly, that have a different yeast going in them.
Okay.
That you can actually put a lot in, but you got to do it incrementally.
Yeah. And now that is the difference too. You got to remember when I'm giving you this basic discussion about the sugars, I'm talking about brewer's yeast. So there are tricks of the trade, obviously, that Belgian brewers and other brewers have used, where you're adding a different form of yeast that can break down some of these sugars that I'm saying brewer's yeast cannot.
And they know their yeast.
Yeah.
So they know what their yeast can do and how to do it.
And I don't, and that's who this discussion is for.
Okay, good.
So we're talking
good.
Just brewer's yeast. Now, here's what I think we're going to do. We're going to take a real quick break. I'm going to make sure that Doc's up to speed with us because we're about to go into things that you can add to your beer, sugars namely, that will impart some flavors and will leave some compounds behind and some non-fermentables, and you're going to get different things and different characteristics out of your beer from those compounds. And when we come back, we're going to talk about those. So hang in there. I hope you're learning a lot about sugars. Hell has frozen over, folks, here on the Brewing Network, and I'm giving the lesson today. Hang in there. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Brewcasters. The Brewcasters on the Brewing Network. Did you know that not only can you order from More Beer online at morebeer.com and receive free shipping on most orders over $59, but you can also shop in person at their 2 retail locations located in Concord and Riverside, California. In fact, the Concord facility has grown to over 15,000 square feet to fit all the new products, expanded showroom, and new knowledge center classroom. And now, in conjunction with the Brewing Network, More Beer is making it easier than ever to keep up on what's happening. Look for the all-new More Beer Monthly podcast at morebeer.com later in January. You'll learn about More Beer's history, sales and discounts on More Beer products, get to know team members, and hear coupon codes during the podcast to save you money. So go to morebeer.com or call 800-600-0033. That's 800-600-0033. And don't forget to check in later this month for the new More Beer Monthly podcast, a production of the Brewing Network.
Sunday night, 5 o'clock rolls around. What's that sound? The voice of the Brewing Underground. I rush home. What's with the Abacast stream? Goddamn, it's almost time. Why don't you work? Fucking thing, it's 5:02. I reboot. Asshat iTunes. I hope Justin made the free FM commute. I'm on. Thank God, not a moment too soon. Holy shit, I just got booted out of the chat room. I won't back, motherfucker, when you do your risk and O2. I'll hail the fucking Jay-Z. Do like he told you. Do what he say. Well, okay, at least mostly. And hit that fucking whirlpool Viagra roast. Sometimes I don't, and I won't bitch more than a little bitch. Bye, I love that sweet shit that likes like that aerobic. Damn, my yeast will not prove and fucking booth being rude. Boom, there goes the blow off to the fucking old chat room. I want out, Justin Chef, there goes my chocolate stout. And I never want to hear the word run high, skip about. I give up, 50G, why don't you push eject me? I'm screaming Gucci when D pushes me off the screen. Jamil, JP, Johnny G, I can't think, but then I hear Doc's little voice in my ear screaming, drink, motherfucker, drink, motherfucker, drink. The BN, going for a silver or gold. The BN, but do I bitch warm or cold? The BN, crew, get unread fine. The Brewing Network, I'm saying 5 gallons at a time. The BN, going for a silver or gold. The BN, no, the bitch warm or cold. The BN, crew, get unread fine. The Brewing Network, I'm saying 5 gallons at a time. I need some TBN box, what a shock, there's always horn in stock. Tick-tock, the visa's unlocked, Sean. Knock, knock, doc, can you walk the walk? Pull out an airlock, a cock in his world flock. There's no my box, into the mash goes a blood crack like a true breeder. It's that for pale ale, my man, Boogita. Flooper, you beer nerds, that guys you just heard. The only man I know whose name is a cuss word. Come hang with James, I'm a Justin Haggerty. And no one understands a word Daniela says. Either Biscuit the Pitbull or Code Right Info will sniff your crack. If you got the Jane hat, do line Excel with my hat. Go tip pound Matt Bertrand, do a little fat. And lunch eat some grass ass. And what about Grouse Rock? He's more than just down the block. And then there's homegrown hops, he's missing just like ours. Yo, I don't know, I can't see, but then I hear Doc's little voice in my ear screaming, who's gonna be out in the desert with me? The BN,
I could have mixed it with chocolate and vagina. It still wouldn't have helped.
Drink!
The Brewing Network. Saving your life.
One beer at a time.
All right, and we're back with the Hell Has Frozen Over show, where I'm giving the chemistry lesson and
Doc's just standing there watching.
Doc's helping me out. Now, I am real happy. Doc's already picked up on some of the things that I wanted him to cover, and I said we'd come back to. So before we move on to these other sugars that we can add that are going to leave behind some flavor profiles, we're going to back up just a little bit, and I'm going to remind you that I was talking when we got to the different types of sugars. We got to trisaccharides, which one of the ones that we mentioned was maltose, which is more commonly known as raffinose.
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
And what I mentioned was that raffinose, it can only be fermented by lager yeast, and that ale yeast can't ferment those things. And what I wanted to know, Doc, is what does that mean then for our lager beers?
Well, it's one of the ways that they can tell lager yeast from ale yeast.
Okay.
Is they'll put them in a solution of that and see which one actually can ferment this.
Oh, right.
And
just an easy way to tell.
You can't really just look at yeast under a microscope and tell which one is lager yeast and which one's ale yeast.
Okay.
They're
too similar.
They're too similar. So you really can't do that. But the fact that lager yeast can go ahead and ferment raffinose is that would gives it that little extra cleanliness or that clean flavor that comes through, and that's what they attribute the whole lager cleanness thing to.
Okay.
And,
so is that to say then, when I brew an ale, since ale yeast can't convert the raffinose, that my beer has my ale has the raffinose sugar left in it?
Yes, and so you will find that to be a little bit sweeter.
Okay.
I was going to bring in, I did 2 side-by-sides, and they were very light lager, basically worts.
Okay.
I did one with an ale yeast, so I wanted to do a cream ale.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, I have some lager yeast, let's throw that into the other batch.
Okay.
And it came out so nice and so clean. It's a low gravity thing, mowed down to about 1006.
Oh, wow.
And there's a big difference between what I put the ale yeast in, which is clean.
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit cleaner with that lager yeast.
All right. Now, this is great to know, and this is why I wanted to cover these basic chemistry components, because it's easy for us to sit around and say, well, that's a really clean lager, or that lagers are a much cleaner beer.
Yeah.
But I've never been able to say why, and this is part of the reason.
It is exactly part of the reason why this happens.
Okay.
And also, when you lager something for a long time, the lager yeast is really working.
Okay.
At that low temperature. Just not much, but it's still cleaning things up.
And it's keeping at that things like raffinose.
Right.
Okay. All right. Now, the other part that I wanted us to come back to are the 4 or more monosaccharides joined together, which are the oligosaccharides. Okay. And otherwise known as dextrins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I've heard Jamil and other people mention, when they're mashing and the malt that they're getting out of that, sometimes a very dextrinous malt.
Yes.
Okay. So that means then that what you've created or what's been left behind when you mash, or even if it's in an extract, that there are these 4 or more monosaccharides joined together that will not be broken down and eaten by yeast?
Yes.
That's what it means. Okay.
The whole thing with the malting and the mashing process is you're breaking these, that's what's in there, is these long chain polysaccharides. And you're not going to get any kind of fermentation out of it because they just can't eat those.
Okay.
They can eat just the end of it or whatever. They just can't do that.
Okay.
So you use starts in the malting process. Huge polysaccharides, branch chain things, and then they break them down.
Yeah.
That's still not good enough. There's some fermentable sugars in it, but not that much. That's when you go into the mashing.
Okay.
And mashing is just an offshoot of malting.
Okay.
Once you get into that, then it starts breaking it up into like the 2 or the 3 saccharide chains.
Yeah.
And most yeast can eat those up.
It can then eat that. Okay.
Anything that's left over other than that adds to mouthfeel.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Adds to sweetness, kind of thing.
So is that the effect of dextrins being left in the wort is a larger mouthfeel, a thicker kind of a beer. That's what you end up with.
Mm-hmm.
What about the flavor characteristics of a dextrinous beer? It
gets that crossover part where sweet gets into thick.
Okay.
And what is which, and the gray area in between.
Yeah.
So at one certain point, you're not going to get any flavors out of these long dextrins.
Okay.
But when they're at the lower end, you're going to get some.
Okay.
And at the other end, where you got some trisaccharides left and some longer chains, you're going to get that sweetness coming through.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of a bleed over from one to the other.
Okay.
So you don't want to have too much of one and not enough of the other.
So if I'm designing a grain bill, I'm putting that together, and I want a dextrinous malt to come out of there, is there a particular grain that is particularly dextrinous that's going to leave dextrins in there that I would add?
At that point, I would say it's more so you want to have either in your grain bill, you're going to want to have like carapils to add to it.
Okay. And carapils is one, by the way, that you can use in lagers as well, because it doesn't add a lot of color.
No, it doesn't add a lot of color. It doesn't add any sweetness per se.
Yeah.
It just adds some body to it.
Some body, okay.
So if you don't want to have a really just a dry bone, backless beer, you want to add into that one with that.
Okay.
So that'll add to it. Your mash temperature plays a lot into this one.
Okay.
If you want to have something that's good. No, you're aiming for something that's not a very beer. It's a beer without a lot of mouthfeel. It's going to be thin, and it doesn't carry the malt with it. You're drinking water, kind of stuff. You kind of plan ahead of that.
Okay.
So,
and isn't there a general rule whereas higher temperatures will leave you with a less dextrinous malt?
No, higher temperatures more.
I got it opposite. Okay.
Yeah.
And a lower temperature is a less dextrinous.
Yes.
And really, so what's happening when you mash? Just very briefly, because we've covered this before. With different temperatures, you're breaking these things down.
You're favoring the alpha amylase over the beta amylase.
Okay.
With one or the other. And if you want to have a more fermentable beer, something that's a little drier, that's going to have basically a drinkable beer that's flows past your palate a lot easier, you want to have it in the low temperature range.
Okay.
It actually cleaves more small parts off of the big chains.
Okay.
And the yeast can eat that more. When you go into the high end, if you want like a big Scotch ale or something that's got a lot of backbone to it, you want to mash it at the higher temperature, which favors the other amylases.
Okay.
Which breaks it up a little different. Smaller, but still not enough to where the yeast are going to eat enough of it.
Okay. All right. Before we move on to the other sugars that we can add, I have a few questions about some of the material we've covered. So let me throw those at you, Doc. And by the way, you now, too, can ask questions. 888-401-BEER, or join Daniela in the chat room. Just hit the Chat Now button on our main page, and you can hand these questions to us as well.
Dr. Scott, would you like me to take that Propel out of your hands and get you a beer?
No, I'm good.
Gotcha.
We do have a couple listener tastings, but we'll go easy on you, Doc.
Okay, good.
We'll do them later in the show. Okay, here's since we're talking about the raffinose and that will be left behind in ales from the ale yeast. Somebody wants to know: is there a way to minimize raffinose in a wort so that ales will taste more lager-like? And is that maybe the choosing of grain, or
no? It has to do with the way the sugars are bound.
Okay.
Instead of a 1,6 sugar, it's a 1,4 sugar.
Okay.
And you really need to have an enzyme that's going to break that 1,4 rather than a 1,6 bond.
So you're talking about the carbons to oxygen when you're saying 1,6 or 1,4?
Right.
Okay.
Both sugars are hexoses.
Yep.
Or, well, unless you come into glucose, it's a 5 and a 6 chain together.
Yeah, okay.
But when you're talking about certain sugars, usually it's a 1,6, the first carbon and the 6th carbon on the first and the second ring, and there's certain enzymes that can break that real easy.
Okay.
And it breaks it into a single sugar. When you got raffinose, it's a 1,4. Okay. And you have to have a different enzyme that will actually break that down.
I see.
Or just be able to break that bond.
Okay.
And then eat the sugar.
So, is that to say then there really isn't a way to make your...
Not in your mashing, no. Not really, or in your grain bill, no.
Okay.
If you can find some of these amylase enzymes that you can get commercially that the big guys use.
Yeah.
That might help.
Okay. Another question we had then is, what about adding starches rather than sugars to boost your fermentables?
That's fine as long as you add it into the mash.
Okay.
Starches are just long-chain sugars. They're long-chain carbohydrates.
Okay.
So you need those enzymes early on in the mash to break those up so that you're into simple sugars so your yeast can eat those.
I see.
If you put them in the boil, all you're going to have is cloudy beer.
Okay.
Because once you boil, you've killed off all those enzymes, and they're not going to work anymore. Enzymes are long-chain proteins that have a certain shape to them, and once you boil them, they unravel, and they will never go back. It's like that egg that you've cooked. You can't uncook the egg.
Right.
And that's what you're doing. You're denaturing those proteins.
Okay.
So
what's done is done.
What's done is done. So you need to put them in early on. I know that certain Belgian brewers will put starch in the cornstarch, but they put it in early. They'll put it in the mash because it's cheap. It's a cheap way to put sugar in there.
Okay.
And once they get it mashed, the enzymes in the mash will eat those up and break them up into small chains that are edible for our yeast.
Okay. So if I want to add starches to my mash, what am I putting in there? Is that things like wheat malt and
cornstarch?
Just corn. So it's
cornstarch.
not okay.
Generally cornstarch because it's cheap. It's out there. You can get it.
Okay.
Well, I would kind of stay away from that unless you're doing like some Belgians, like triples and things.
Yeah.
Hey, it might be worth a try.
Yeah.
Because it's not 100% convertible.
Right.
So you're going to get some mouthfeel with it too.
Well, and that's what I've said to these folks. I'm giving you sort of this chemical overview, and even as we move forward now, we're going to talk about these other sugars you can add that are going to leave compounds behind. And now that Doc's here, I can ask how he's experimented with them. But I want you guys to use this discussion the same way I'm using it, and that's to get a general understanding and then go out and do it. Go out and add some of these things to your beer and find out what it does for you. And then you too can come on the Brewing Network and pretend you know about chemistry. How about that?
That's good.
Yeah. All right. So some examples of sugars that are not 100% fermentable. So your brewer's yeast isn't going to process everything. It's going to leave some compounds behind. And the compounds that are left behind are actually they are imparting flavor in your beer. And some of these you want, and some of them you don't want. And how you choose to use the amounts of these sugars is going to depend on how much of those flavors that you want. So I've just kind of narrowed down a few of them that are commonly used in different recipes. Now, one of them is brown sugar. And by the way, brown sugar, which a beer that Lagunitas makes, brown sugar, great beer.
Exactly.
Big beer.
Big beer.
And it gets you high at the same time as it gets you drunk.
Yep.
I've noticed that, it's a different kind of a buzz that you get out of this stuff.
One of the things with that one is it's a lot higher alcohol than you think it is.
Okay.
The brown sugar will actually boost the alcohol without boosting the body feel.
Oh, I see.
The mouth feel and that whole thing.
Okay.
So you're thinking you're drinking a pretty light beer.
Okay.
And you're not.
Yes. Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal with brown sugar, just so that you get to know. Brown sugar is essentially sucrose crystals, which is your table sugar, but they add molasses to it. They lightly coat it with molasses.
Yes, it's molasses is one of those byproducts of refining sugar.
Okay.
And so they get the white sugar out of there, and then they get left with different degrees of kind of molasses. And they will actually put some back in to get your brown sugar. It's not like the turbinado sugar, which is raw sugar. It's a little bit different than that.
Okay. So what happens, and the reason that you need to know what brown sugar is made up of, you need to know that it's made up of these sucrose crystals, which your yeast is going to eat, and it's coated with this molasses, which your yeast is not going to eat.
Exactly.
And this then is the compound that's left behind in your beer, and it's going to impart some flavors. Now, some of the flavors, I've not used it. I just did some reading. One of the most common characteristics I've read is it'll impart kind of a light rum flavor to your beer.
I did one of our big brews, and usually when I go to a big brew now, I don't want to haul all my all grain equipment out there, so I'll usually do an extract or extract of the grain. And I did one with brown sugar.
All right,
turned out excellent.
Really,
I put it in at the last part of it, and everybody loved the beer. I said, "Well, what's the secret ingredient?" Nobody could tell me.
Okay,
and it was brown sugar.
Okay,
and just enough to where imparted a flavor that was just. What the hell is that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, and now the amount is what I want to talk to you about. I like that you say just enough to impart the flavor, because is there a general rule? Like I said, some of these you just got to experiment with.
Yes.
But is there a general rule of maybe how much of your fermentable something like a brown sugar should make up?
I would say 5 to 10%. With that one, and it's just enough to impart the flavor, and it'll boost the alcohol some. So be careful with that. If you're making a 1055 beer and you throw in some brown sugar at the end, and you haven't put that into the calculations, you're going to have a 1065 beer real easy.
Okay.
And then you got to be careful because it won't ferment all the way down necessarily.
Okay.
And you're going to have a pretty alcoholic beer.
Okay.
So, you add that whole equation into there that you're adding sugar.
Yeah.
And that's going to add you gravity points too.
Okay.
So a lot of this brown sugar is fermentable.
Okay. But the compounds that are left behind, and this is all you need.
And they do impart quite a flavor to it, and you want to be subtle with it.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how good that beer was.
Okay. All right. Here's the next one on my list, and that is, everybody knows, honey. You've probably all tried a honey beer or two in your life, and I'm not talking about mead. I'm talking about like a honey ale. Now, honey it's a highly concentrated form of sugar, and it has a lot of impurities in it. And it's the impurities that are going to be left behind to impart flavor in your beer. Right. Now, when we had the mead guy in here, he talked to us about all the different kinds of honeys that are out there. So they're compounds that are coming from different pollens and different everything. And it's these impurities and the different characteristics that you need to pay attention to, because they're going to be left in your beer. And you can choose your honey for beer just like you would choose your honey for mead, and what's left behind is the flavor you're going to get. Now, Ray Daniels has written in his book that you could use any amount of honey you want in your beer.
In my book?
In your book, yes. But he does say, although at some point you're making mead and you're no longer making beer.
Or braggot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he didn't exactly give like a don't go over 15% with your honey, kind of a standard like he did with other things.
I always think of honey as fermentable sugar, period.
All right.
And when you add it in, it's going to make the beer lighter, more palatable. If you put in too much, you're going to have pretty much a braggot or too much of a honey flavor to it. Honey's a big deal with when you put it in, not just how much you put it in.
Okay.
So if you just want to have, you just want to boost the flavor and you got a whole bunch of honey around, you can put it in at knockout or boil it for 15 minutes, but you're not going to get a lot of those honey impurities that you're looking to pull flavor out. If you're going to boil it.
Okay.
Another way of doing it is put it right at boil out or flame out, or the other thing is to put it in as fermentation is going. Put it in the primary, boost it halfway through kind of thing, and then you have to treat it kind of funny to do that. Some people put it right in. They'll reconstitute it with water, and then put it in there, which means you really got to deal with how much extra water you're putting in.
Yeah.
On top of your beer, because you're going to thin the beer out.
Okay.
Or you're just going to add sugar into whatever your beer is. Shoot low. And then you're going to add it back in, or if you put too much water and honey in, you're going to end up, basically watering down your beer.
Okay.
If you put it in later, you're going to want to figure somehow to put it in and sanitize it.
Yeah, they talk about, if you read about how to use honey, they actually talk about kind of self-pasteurizing it by boiling it for a while yourself, heating it rather.
But if you boil it, you're going to end up taking all those volatiles out of it, and it's just going to be sugar again, and you're not going to get everything you want out of it.
All those impurities.
So a lot of these guys that are out there, and they've got local honey guys around, they can get honey real easy.
Yeah.
And it's that they want to put that local twist on their beer.
Yeah.
You really got to put it in the secondary, or not the secondary, but halfway through the primary.
Okay.
And usually what I do is I heat it up to about 140, keep it stirred. Mm-hmm. Even talking to some honey guys, they even want you to keep it under CO2. like a blanket of CO2, so you kind of shoot some CO2 over the pot.
So as you're heating it,
and then you put it back in the oven, and you leave it about 145, 150 for an hour.
Okay.
That's one way of pasteurizing it.
Okay.
You don't really want to boil it, and then add it back in.
Okay. All right, great advice. And then you're keeping those compounds
a lot of those,
you want.
You're keeping a lot of those impurities that are actually going to impart that kind of honey into it. If you're doing orange blossom honey, you're doing wildflower honey, Tupelo honey, whatever you're doing, they all have different flavors to it. If you want to keep those flavors, you got to deal with it in a certain way. And you don't necessarily just want to dump honey into your beer.
Okay. Yeah. And again, now this is something that you gotta experiment with. I can hear the questions now. How much honey? How much honey? Go home and dick around with it.
If you got Pro Mash, I would stick around 10 or 15%, no more than.
Okay.
Most of my adjuncts I try to stay around 15% of anything.
Of anything. Okay.
And this is an adjunct, or just like think about it as adding corn sugar to it,
right?
Which will dry it out. And if you want some honey flavors into it, you're going to dry it out. Add that back into your equation.
Yeah.
You don't want to have it too dry.
Okay.
Just have this bodiless kind of beer that tastes a little bit sweet.
Yeah.
It's cool. It'll make some people happy, but not everybody.
That's right. And that's kind of if you get too extreme of one flavor or the other, that's going to happen in general.
So you got to have some backbone to it.
Okay.
Figure out which beer you want to add it to, which would augment this, not be the beer for a honey beer.
Okay. I'm going to cover one more additive type of sugar that you can use, and then I'm going to back us up and take a few questions.
Okay, great.
Because I got a whole list of questions, and then we'll cover yet some more sugars that you can add. So the last one I want to cover before doing some questions is lactose, otherwise known as milk sugar. Mm-hmm. Now everybody knows some people are lactose intolerant and things like that, but lactose is in beer anyway. It's coming from a lot of the barley based malts that you're using, but you can actually add lactose direct. Now, lactose, here's an important thing about lactose. It is not fermentable by brewer's yeast. So the entirety of lactose is not going to be fermented by brewer's yeast. But that's a good thing, because what it does is it remains in the beer to provide some residual sweetness, like in a milk stout or a sweet stout.
Yeah.
So, now, I definitely want to ask if you've ever done a sweet stout using lactose, but I also want to ask, I'm a big fan of, you're all going to make fun of cream ales, like a Boddington's type of a smooth, creamy ale. Are they putting lactose in a beer like that? Do you know? Or is that just something, the smoothness you're getting from that and the sweetness is not a lactose form? Is it really only used?
It's English.
Okay.
And the one reason that they started using lactose is it's cheap.
Okay.
Because it's a byproduct from the milk industry. When they're making milk products and things, they have lactose left over, and they just want to get rid of it. So they'll process it out, and they can use that. But a lot of people are lactose intolerant. So if you're ever going to use lactose for your stout, you better tell your friends, because a lot of them aren't lactose tolerant.
Okay.
And ask them, do you like ice cream? No, I can't eat ice cream.
Yeah.
Well, then don't give them your milk stout.
Okay.
They're going to have a stomach ache and be cursing you on Monday morning.
Yeah. Okay.
Most Northern Europeans kind of have that problem. You drank milk as a kid, but you grow out of it because you're lactose intolerant.
Okay.
But I've always wanted to experiment a little bit and put some lactose in something, and then put some lactate in there, which is a lactase enzyme
to break
down some of it.
I see. And if it broke it down, would it then make some of it edible?
Yes, it would be fermentable. It's not going to eat everything.
Okay.
So, and I don't know what the temperature range for lactate is.
Yeah.
It's probably body temperature since you're eating it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind seeing what would happen with that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Now, what form do you get lactose to put in your beer? Does it just go to the homebrew?
It looks like sugar. It's white, powdery.
Give me some lactose.
A lot of homebrew shops will carry it.
Okay. All right, so there's no magic to it. You just give me some lactose.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. And it's usually like a dried sugar form.
Yeah, and that's why it leaves the residual sweetness to it, because it's not fermentable by normal brewer's yeast.
Okay.
And there's a lot of things that you have that aren't fermentable that add that leave that sweetness.
Okay. 888-401-BEER is our number, and you can also join Daniela in the chat room to ask any questions that you have. And with that, I'm going to cover some of the questions, so I'm going to just take a little break. I do have a couple more sugars to go over with you that are going to leave flavors behind, but I want to make sure we cover everybody's questions here. First one is somebody wants to know if we've ever used a sugar called Jaggery. Is that what you have here, Daniela?
Yeah. It's like
an Indian sugar.
Yeah, it's an Indian sugar. No, I haven't used it. It's big in Mosher's book.
Oh, okay. That's the Radical Brewing book?
Yeah, it's a raw type sugar, which has a lot of impurities into it, and he really likes it. He thinks it's really cool.
This person said that he made a pretty damn popular IPA with it. Says that it's an Indian sugar distilled from some kind of a palm sap.
Yeah.
So, which would kind of liken it with a maple syrup type of thing too. Okay.
But Mosher really likes. He goes on and on about Jaggery.
Really?
In a couple different places in his Radical Brewing. Book.
Here's another thing I've not heard of, which doesn't mean it's not common, by the way. Can you use sugar alcohols to ferment? It says like erythritol. He's saying. Do you know what this is about? I've never heard of a sugar alcohol. Are you sure you wrote this properly?
I totally wrote that properly.
No, that's what it said. Never heard of that. It says sugar alcohols, so never heard of that one. Okay. Can malted rye flour be used easily in the mash as a fermentable? Malted rye flour. You know anything about that?
You should be able to put it in the mash and be fine.
You should. Okay, that's what you want to know. Yeah. Okay.
You should be fine, but don't just put it in the boil kettle because it won't break it down far enough.
All right, now here's a really good question. When you're adding starches to the mash, is there a way to calculate the gravity contribution of that starch?
I would Google it
and
see what that's going to be. It depends on the starch.
Okay. Probably it's not a pro mash function though.
No, and it's tough because I don't know what your source is, or what it's going to be pulling up. And if it's not a regular thing, nobody's have put it through the lab to see what's going to happen.
Okay,
it'd be experiment and see how it goes.
Okay. Now here's one of those how much questions.
Cool.
We'll give a general answer, I suppose, whatever we can do. Person wants to know how much corn sugar would they use in a barley wine. Which obviously is going to be a nice big beer. Would you exceed your 15% mark for a barley wine, or still keep it below?
That would depend on what I'm getting my fermentables from.
Yeah.
If I'm getting a lot of extract, with the barley wine, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
If I'm doing all malt beer with barley wine, I could see going over 15% with that.
Okay.
Because a lot of extracts aren't fermentable as far as you might think.
Yeah.
Where you can kind of tailor your grain bill and your mash temperatures and things to get it down to where you want.
Yeah.
If I knew what I was doing as far as what was in my mash, I could go over that if I want to dry it out, not have a finishing gravity at 1035 or something.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it down there that far with all grain.
Okay.
There's certain ways of getting enough extract out to boil.
Yeah.
It's either going to be a long boil or you're going to do a double mash.
I see.
Where you just take the first runnings off of 2 mashes.
Yep.
And that'll get it right there, and then make some small beers off of the second runnings off of those 2 mashes.
Okay.
Or there's another way of doing it where you can run off the first mash and collect that, take the grain out.
Yeah.
Put new grain in and use the hot liquor that is already your hot wort, basically.
Yeah.
Pump that back in as your hot liquor.
Kind of a pseudo decoction. In that sense, right?
Kind of. It's a double mash. So you just use the runoff, which is already hot at your whatever temperature on new grain. You're going to run into some issues because of concentration issues. Try to extract that out, but it's one of the only ways you're going to get a lot of extract out of that.
Okay.
Without having to do a 4-hour boil.
Yeah.
And that's still not going to get you down your finishing gravity down as far as you want. If you put extract in, your finishing gravity is going to go up.
Okay.
If you use regular, just plain sugar, it's going to keep that finishing gravity down, make it more dry.
Okay. a clarification. The person with the Erythritol alcohol sugar question said that it's a sugar used in low-carb sugar stuff like low-carb ice cream and shit like that. I guess that's what Erythritol is.
Yeah, I want to know that because I don't want to intake so much sugar when I drink a beer. I'm concerned about that.
Well, you're not. I mean, that's not the point here. We're not saying that we're leaving a bunch of sugar.
We're trying to figure out what's fermentable and what's not.
Yeah.
To leave just enough in to make it sweet and not really, really dry.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
So it won't have too much calories, the beer?
Oh, it's going to have calories from other things.
Yeah.
It's going to be from what's leftover carbohydrates that are in there that your body will break down.
But it is, for example, I know that the double IPA, for instance, I know that this beer has a lot of calories.
But because it has a lot of malt, not because it has a lot of sugar left in it. It just it's created with a lot of malt, so it's the other compounds Doc's talking about that are going to add those carbs, not necessarily sugar.
Just because the yeast can only break down simple sugars doesn't mean your body can't. And so you break these things down, make them into calories, and
become big.
You end up like me with man boobs. Okay, someone wanted to know, what about spelt? I know we've talked about spelt before, spelt flour.
Yeah. Just use it like anything else. You can't, if it's not malted, no point in using it.
Okay.
Unless you're going to use it in your mash with other things.
Is that a clean fermentable?
It should be. It's just like any other grain.
Okay.
And it's going to have complex carbohydrates that need to be broken down.
Okay.
You're only going to break those down if you have the enzymes in the mash, which means usually and you only get those enzymes in the mash from a malted grain.
Gotcha.
So, at any level that's going to be workable anyway.
Yeah.
So you got to throw in some 6-row or some 2-row to actually convert the starches in the spelt to break them down enough to where the yeast are going to eat them.
So you need the enzymes from the 2 and the 6-row to do any work on the spelt.
Unless the spelt is actually been mashed.
Okay.
Or malted.
Now, while we're talking about that and the enzymes in grain, and by the way, we're going to do as part of this extra things you can do with your beer series that we're starting here. We're going to do an adjunct and specialty grains. In Designing Great Beers, in Ray's book, there's a great list where he lists all the malts, and in particular he lists a lot of specialty malts, and then he gives a description of them. And at the end of his description, like the last sentence of every description, is whether or not the malt has enzymes in it. And it's important to know because if it doesn't have enzymes, it can't break itself down. You have to add things like Doc is saying that does have enzymes in order to break it down.
Unless it's already broken down.
Or it won't be broken down at all.
Right.
And sometimes that's what you want.
And yeah, you're going to have the residual sweetness or a higher gravity.
Yeah.
Or it's going to come out cloudy.
But it's a cool resource to be able to look at the grain and say, oh, that one has enzymes, and usually it has enough to convert itself, or no, it doesn't. And it's and it's so cut and dry, that even I understood it.
If you're adding a lot of corn, doing a corn mash or something, it's going to need enzymes to break them down.
Yeah.
And that's why they use a lot of 6-row when you're doing an American ale or lager.
Okay.
Because it's 40% corn.
I see.
And it doesn't have the enzymes in it. But 6-row has a lot more enzymes than 2-row. So that's why they use that.
Okay.
And it will help break all that down.
Okay. All right, getting back, that kind of clears our questions for now, but if you have more, join Danielle in the chat room and you can pass them to us or call 888-401-BEER. Before we go to break, I'm going to cover 2 more types of sugars. And one of them, a commonly used one, and one that is really interesting for the compounds it's going to leave behind too, is maple syrup. Now, in order to understand maple syrup and how to use it, just really briefly, in case you don't know, you should know what it is.
You're not from the Northeast.
From the Northeast. It's just sap from maple trees. But what happens is that it only has about 2% solids in it, so it has to be boiled down in order to increase those solids. So they take sap from maple trees, they boil it, and they increase those solids within its solution from 2% to around 66%. However, this is the interesting part. Commercial examples include a blend of what they've boiled down, and that blend that they put in is mostly corn syrup. And we've talked about what that would be.
I've gotten some maple syrup from friends that are just actually, that 100% maple syrup from the Northeast, and usually kind of sits there the kids eat most of it, and then but when I try to substitute out when we Mrs. Butterworth runs out, they don't like it.
Yeah, it's because it's weird.
It's weird. It's
not
like
what we're used to.
I know I've read the label, I know what it is, cool, that's nice.
Right.
But my kids just don't like it because it's not that corn syrupy sweet.
Right.
That's maple flavored.
That's right. So speaking chemically, here's why it's important to know that if you just go to the grocery store and buy this commercial example of maple syrup and it's mixed with a blend of mostly corn syrup, what you need to know is that corn sugar that's in the corn syrup, just like we've been talking about, it's going to be eaten by the yeast and it's not going to impart any flavor. It's like we said, corn sugar is like 99% fermentable. So it won't leave anything behind because all of that corn sugar is mostly glucose and provides nothing for flavor. So what you need to do is get raw or unblended maple syrup, like Doc is mentioning here, that's not been diluted.
And it doesn't have any preservatives or anything else in it. You got to be careful. If you just want to add a little bit of maple flavor and have boost the fermentables, kind of get a little more alcohol out of it and lighten the full flavor. Just using Mrs. Butterworth would probably be fine.
Yeah.
I haven't checked to see if it's got preservatives in it.
Okay.
But if you want to get that maple syrup flavor into it, like Justin said, you need to get the raw stuff, the pure stuff. It's out there. It's just not right in front of your face.
That's right.
When you're trying to grab it off the shelf.
And if you're in Canada, you're stoked because
that's all they have.
Yeah, if you're like Eastern Canada, you're stoked. You can make some great maple beers. But the key here is again in all of these sugars that we're describing, it's the compounds left behind that are going to leave flavor in your beer, and that's why you need to know just a little of this chemistry. So get the raw stuff. Now, in the books that I was looking at, they also made another point, and that's about when to use your maple syrup in the beer. And what they're talking about is that a lot of that maple flavor can actually be lost during primary fermentation, and I guess it has to do with those glucose and simple sugars being eaten as well.
And the CO2 kind of scrubbing all these kind of light compounds out, it just blows them right out the top.
That bubbler on top of your thing is shooting out all your maple.
You can smell that and say, maple.
Yeah, that's bad.
It's not in your beer.
Yeah. So they had actually recommended that if you're going to use maple syrup to impart some flavor, you should add it to your secondary.
Yes.
And again, this is something you not only want to use sparingly, but you want to experiment with. I mean, how much maple do you want in your beer?
Yeah.
That's up to you.
And I've done a maple with oak too.
Yeah.
Oak and maple kind of go together pretty well.
Yeah, that sounds actually kind of just a real woody flavor in general.
Too much of everything?
Bad thing?
Not so cool.
Yeah, like masturbation.
Well, I don't know about that.
So you maybe want to add it during your secondary so that you don't lose those volatiles, the maple flavor. And also, they're mentioning that it won't inhibit the yeast, because you need to remember that I said if glucose is eaten first in large quantities by the yeast, it tends to kind of go to sleep and pass out like I do.
Well, they're happy and they're done.
Yeah. So by putting it into the secondary, your yeast has pretty much done its work, and
they're looking for something else to eat. They're eating their secondary compounds. They're eating diacetyl. They're eating other things and reprocessing them.
That's right. Okay, so there's your maple syrup. And now, Doc, have you done a beer with maple syrup? You have?
Yeah.
What have you done?
I did a maple porter.
Very nice.
It was pretty decent. I think I put a little bit too much maple into it. I put it in the secondary, like you said.
Yeah.
And the flavor really came through.
Okay.
But I think it was just a little bit too much. You got to be careful. You got to experiment a little bit.
Okay. Now, a question has come through about maple syrup too. They're asking about what grade is best to use. Now, when you're talking about maple syrup, there's two grade. There's grade A and there's grade B. Now, John Palmer talks about the makeup of those two, the two grades, and I think what he recommends is, you'll get more flavor if you use the grade B. You get more maple flavor if you use grade B.
That's what I've seen on most of the forums. Is try to use B.
Yeah.
Because it's not as refined, and you're going to get more of that maple-ish kind of flavor coming through.
Here's what he says, that kind of the reason is that grade B syrup can contain 6% invert sugar, and grade A actually contains less than 1%. And that's kind of where you're getting that maple flavor from. So obviously you'd want to choose the one with the more invert sugar.
Whatever gives you, if you're putting maple syrup in, you're putting it for the flavor.
Yeah.
And you want to get more mapley out of it. And across the boards, it's always been B.
All right, before I move on to the next sugar, we got a caller question. I think we got Push on the line. What's happening, Push?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
I'm giving a chemistry lesson here, Push.
It's good. I have to say, I tuned in and I was thrilled, dude. Good show. Good job.
You thought you were tuned into a different network, didn't you?
No. The sultry tones of yours can't be mistaken.
Thank you. All right, what do you got? A question by way of sugar?
So all the sugars you're talking about now, you're talking about all of them in the boil. What about, can we prime with any of these if you're bottling, or are they strictly for boiling?
No, well, corn sugar is your basic priming sugar as well. But I guess that's a good question. Now, could you add something like a maple syrup for a priming sugar, Doc?
Yes, you can.
Really?
Maple syrup is going to be fermentable, too. You can actually use liqueurs to add for priming sugar.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. You just got to figure out how much sugar is in them.
Yeah.
And actually, Mosher's book is really good about how to figure out how much sugar is in that liqueur you're adding and how much.
Oh, sweet.
And that'll sweet.
Sweet.
So there's a way of figuring out how much is going in.
Okay. So as long as you're ending up with the same amount of fermentables as you would if you just threw corn sugar in,
right,
then you're in good shape.
Yeah.
So which Radical Brewing?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said Mosher's? Yeah, Radical Brewing. Exactly.
And he goes into using liqueurs for actually priming.
Nice. I really like that idea.
Yeah.
Have you done that yet?
Not yet. No.
Yeah. What's that, Push?
So honey or molasses, and did you touch on treacle?
Not yet.
Oh, is that the same kind of thing? Or?
Treacle's along the lines of molasses. It's treated a little different way, and how do they get it?
Which we're about to cover, too, molasses.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jumping the gun again there.
Damn you.
Sorry. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Push.
Good night.
All right. Okay, which will actually let us move on to molasses. Now, according to my reading, molasses actually has the most flavor imparted from impurities. Mm-hmm. And that's because molasses is made basically from sugar cane, and the unfermentables, like the whole sugar cane itself is kind of thrown into the molasses making process.
Yeah, they with the way they process the whole thing. Yeah. I always wondered why they burn the sugarcane fields.
Yeah.
They let them go 2 years.
Okay.
And the whole 2 years they get weeds and everything else in there. But the water content is so high in the sugarcane that they will just burn the field.
Yeah.
And it burns off all of the weeds and everything else out of the field. It leaves just the sugarcane.
Really?
Then they go and then they can harvest. And they harvest all that cane sugar, especially in Hawaii, and then they'll pull it through. And then they would ship it over here to Crockett.
Oh, yeah, I used to live in old Crockett.
Yeah, and they would ship it in big ships. They would boil it down to have this kind of sappy stuff. And then they'll process it over here in Crockett.
Yeah.
One of the only places left on the West Coast that actually does cane sugar.
Are they still doing it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know either, because the factory just kind of sits there.
Yeah, and it's right on the water. They would just pull the ship up and pump all that stuff out. And when they're making their white table sugar, the stuff that's left over is the molasses.
Aha.
And just like you got down here, it's they have light, medium, and black strap.
Okay.
So we're going to have different modes of how much molasses is imparting the flavor in there.
Okay. I got Mrs. Henning. Mrs. Henning, you got to hang on the line. I know we want to talk about Bub's tattoo, and I do too, but I'll do it just before the break.
You do.
Oh, I'm sorry, not Bub's.
Mr. Henning.
Mr. Henning's tattoo.
Mrs. Henning and Bob know?
Sorry, I'm used to the people doing dumb things being Bub, not Mr. Henning. Mr. Henning's such a nice man. I'm not used to it being him. I love he's getting a Brewing Network tattoo. Hang in there for me, okay? I don't want to interrupt this discussion. People get angry if we're on a roll and then just sidetrack. So let me finish. I've only got this. We're just talking molasses here for a sec, and then we'll talk about tattoos. We'll take a break.
You segue right into tattoos.
And then when we come back, we're going to talk about fruit. So again, just kind of wrapping up the molasses part two. It has the most flavor from impurities left behind, and it's available in basically kind of 3 grades, and that's light, medium, and black strap. Don't ask me why they call it blackstrap.
I don't either. Probably something from the South.
Yeah, right. Something very, very strange. But anyway, it's the 3 concentrations, and it goes sort of chronologically from light, medium, and blackstrap. Blackstrap having the most flavor compounds, impurities left behind. Light having the least. So you need to know kind of what you're going for.
And when you're actually going to buy it, what's available too.
Yes.
And I've only seen blackstrap once, I think.
Now, is this something you find on the shelf?
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
You can find that, or you can find it in specialty shops. Of course, we have the internet now, so I'm sure you can find anything you want.
Yeah. My computer's breaking on me at the moment.
You want to order some, medium molasses and a blow-up doll? Fine.
Yeah, you can find it. Soon to come to the Brewing Network store.
Yeah.
Molasses. If you buy now, you get a free blow-up doll.
Yes. Keep shopping with this. With this customer.
Now, the thing about molasses is another description of rum-like notes if you use it.
Well, that's what rum's made from, is cane sugar.
Okay.
And usually less treated sugar.
Yeah.
So it's going to have a lot more molasses in it.
Okay.
And that's what rum comes off of. And when yeast goes through the fermentation with cane sugar and molasses, you're going to get that signature rum flavor.
Okay. All right, there you go. And it also...
Not that I put that down at all.
Yeah. And it's going to leave you also with some kind of residual sweet flavors, too.
Yes.
It's not just the rum, but actually with some sweetness.
Because there's a lot of impurities in the molasses.
Yeah.
So these impurities are the ones that are going to give you that flavor.
Right.
Along with, it's got some sugar in it still, so it's going to be able to ferment it, too.
That's right. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this call from Mrs. Henning, and we're going to talk tattoos for a second, but I do have one more sugar to cover, and this, by the way, isn't a comprehensive list of obviously, of all the sugars you can use. I just kind of took 6 of the very common ones, and we're going to cover fruit after the break, and that one's actually going to lead us into an entire discussion about how to use fruit in your beer as well.
Shouldn't we save that for lunch meat?
We cover fruit every week on Lunch Meat. And
okay.
We're just going to cover it scientifically on this show. Mrs. Henning, pleasure to have you on the line with us. How are you tonight?
Fine, and you?
I'm doing great. I'm sorry to leave you waiting. I'm just, you can call me Professor Justin for today.
The prof.
Yeah.
Now you're just being silly.
Yeah. So let's talk about Mr. Henning's Brewing Network tattoo here.
Yes, he's going to get it on Wednesday.
Is he really?
Where's he going to get it on?
All right, listen, I just want to talk seriously for a second, because as happy as I am and that this man is getting a Brewing Network tattoo, I want to make sure that the two of you know what's happening here and that you're entirely comfortable with getting a Brewing Network tattoo. I mean, you realize how permanent this thing is, right?
Yes, he realizes that.
And now I want to, what's his thought process? Is he just, real dedicated to the thing and loves it? I'm just nervous that he's going to regret it.
I want to know if he's got a backup to say when people say, what's that BN thing? What is he going to tell them?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Are you sure he's real comfortable?
He's pretty comfortable with it.
And
I'm not so sure about it.
You're not too sure? How big are we talking? Is this going to be like the size of his back?
I'm not for sure how big he's really wanting it.
I mean, it's a cool logo. I'm not saying it's not going to look cool. I just want to make sure. I would hate to get a phone call saying, listen, I really regret that I did that.
Not Mr. Henning. You've met him.
I know. He's hardcore.
He's cool.
Yeah.
He's just so much cooler than you are.
Cooler than Justin.
Now, where's he going to get it, Mrs. Henning?
He hasn't decided yet. He thought about either one of his arms.
Yeah.
But then I suggested maybe his back or
on
the
his ass?
backside of his calf.
There you go. I like the calf idea.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I like butt cheek. That way Roger will only see it.
Yeah, then only Roger will see that. I like the calf idea because it's subtle. You don't have to look down there, but if you do, you can see the BN rolling around.
Yeah, and he said if he got it on his back that I would have to cut out the shirt just so he could show off.
We could have a special Henning shirt
Yeah.
available here.
Exactly. And we could sell it online that it's the Henning model, and it has a cutout. Yeah.
I
Now,
was like, well, if you're going to have it on your back, then you know you're going to have to shave your back hair.
yeah, that's
Well,
true.
that's a given.
That's true.
But, he should probably be doing that anyway.
He's pretty.
Yes, he should.
He's pretty furry back there, isn't he?
He's a little bit furry.
Yeah. All right. In case you don't know what we're talking about, Mr. Henning, and not only being a hardcore member of the BN Army, but also dedicated to the cause of Linda Stark. And when we were doing the fundraising and putting up different crazy things that we would do, Mr. Henning said, "Hey, if you guys come up with X amount, I'll throw down a BN tattoo." And now he's keeping to his word, and he's doing it. So
I have respect for that.
it's a lot of respect. Now listen, I gotta send you the official logo. You see what I'm saying here? I don't want you to take it off of the website and have it be like some distorted version.
Right.
Now, it does look like is on the website, but let me send you a high-quality image of our logo that he can give to the tattoo artist.
Okay.
Because the worst thing that could happen is this guy he gets a great tattoo at the BN, and it's like the wrong one. You know? I mean,
Right.
that'd be awful. So
No kidding.
I will send it tomorrow morning, all right?
All right.
I'm writing myself a note. Hang on.
I was thinking bobbleheads.
Send
that tattoo going.
And he's not the only one getting a tattoo.
Uh-oh.
Really?
Uh-oh.
Are you doing it too?
I'm getting my first tattoo on Wednesday, too.
Is it a Brewing Network tattoo?
No.
Oh, who cares then?
What are you getting, Mrs. Henning?
I'm getting a wolf paw print on the top of my foot.
Oh, on the top of your foot?
Yes.
Wow, I've never seen a tattoo there.
It's cool. It's better than on your forehead, that's for sure.
That's pretty cool.
Because that would just be stupid. But on your foot, that's cool.
That's an old Navy thing, is to put a chicken on one foot and a pig on the other, because those are the two things that can't swim.
Ah, right.
And so it's an old Navy thing. is
Keep you out of the water.
Put the tattoo on the top of the feet.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. I've never seen you in the water.
You're never going to get one, you're going to cry because it hurts a little.
So you guys are going together to get these tats?
Yep.
Have you researched your tattoo artist?
Yeah, he's a friend of the family, so he's done quite a few.
Okay. All right.
Well, you got to send us pictures then.
Oh, yeah.
We will.
Oh, I'm putting Mr. Henning all over the website. You kidding me?
You should.
You're going to be on our new brochure and everything. I mean, we got to show people how dedicated our fans.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know of a television show of people out there tattooing logos on themselves.
It's true.
Yeah, what's that?
Not for free,
No,
anyway.
is that Miami Ink?
Yeah. That's different.
They're only putting tattoos on their body.
Yeah, exactly.
How about, while it's going on, you guys can call into that lunch meat line?
Yeah.
And we can...
Oh, no, you're doing it when... Oh, yeah, we got the
line. We can, call it in and we can listen to Mr. Henning scream.
Yeah. You think he's going to cry, Mrs. Henning?
Probably not. He's already had 2 tattoos.
Oh, he has?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't even hurt all that
Then
much.
make it really big so he does cry.
You got him right
Yeah.
there?
Do it?
Is he right there?
No, I'm still at work. I'm just about ready to leave.
All right. I want to know how big this thing's going to be.
It's going to be on his arm, I thought, right?
No, she's saying he's not quite sure. Maybe the arm, maybe the back.
I don't know how big his calf is.
Or his calf, yeah. I really am curious. I mean, I want to know how big this sucker's going to be. So I'm so fascinated by this. What a cool guy. All right. Well, thank you for the call and for the tattooing allowance. That's awesome. All right. Make sure I'll send it tomorrow. He cannot get it unless he gets that logo from me.
Okay.
All right, Mrs. Henning. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. We're going to take a quick break.
Entertainment you want.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, why not? Just play it randomly.
Information you need.
My whole system just broke.
The Brewing
Look at your brain.
When we come back, we're going to cover fruit, and at the end of the show, we're going to recap. And we also got a couple listener tastings to do. We'll be right back.
Nice.
Hang in there.
Good.
Hey
there, buddy, better fix your door.
Better get out of my general store.
Well, you sold me one, you can sell me one more.
I ain't gonna sell you no beer no more.
DUI, too drunk to think about it, might as well try. 100 pretty ladies and they're giving me the eye.
I told you once, I told you twice, drinking and driving is a bad man's vice.
And a left, left, right, and a right, right, left. Woo! Hey there, mama, clean my plate.
You can go out for lunch, don't be late.
I take a Tanqueray and Darvocet out on a double date.
You can pop 'em in the Pontiac, but bring back the bait.
DUI, too drunk to think about it, might as well try. 100 pretty ladies and they're giving me the eye.
Boys will be boys, men will be men. You know what you done, don't do it again.
I'm gonna do it again. Gonna do it again. What do you know?
Well, you're on the interstate and you're going slow.
Yeah, I missed my turn. Which way do I go?
Step out of the car, you're going to jail.
No! DUI, too drunk to think about it, might as well try. 100 pretty ladies and they're giving me the eye.
Walk the line, heel to toe, tilt your head back and touch your nose.
What?
Walk the line, heel to toe, tilt your head back and touch your nose. Walk the line, heel to toe, tilt your head back and touch your nose. Now recite backwards the alphabet.
Up yours, pig, you do that shit. DUI, too drunk to think about it, might as well try. 100 pretty ladies and they're giving me the eye. Walk the line, heel to toe, tip your head back and touch your nose. Walk the line, heel to toe, play the guitar, go to the go. Get my head back and touch my nose. Walking the line, heel to toe. Get my head back and touch my nose.
Put your hands on your hips, follow the pen.
I can't hear you, sir. Say it again.
Put your hands on your hips and follow the pen.
You know I fucked your sister in the back of my van.
Put your hands on your hips, follow the light.
Sir, I just want to go home tonight. DUI, too drunk to think about it, might as well try. Cold ain't short night, 4th of July. Told you once, told you twice. Drinking and driving is a bad man's vice. Told you once, told you twice. Drinking and driving is a bad man's vice. Told you once, told you twice. Drinking and driving is a bad man's vice.
to Three Guys.
Excuse me? What about me?
Yeah, sorry. You're listening to Three Guys and One Girl use the radio show as an excuse to drink more beer. The Brewcasters on the Brewing Network.
Yeah, welcome back to the Brewing Network, the Hell Freezes Over show. 888-401-BEER our phone number if you have any questions. And you can also, of course, join Daniela in the chat room, and she'll pass your questions on to us. Today we're talking about sugars, fermentable and unfermentable, and why you'd want to be using those in your beer, and also why you wouldn't want to be using them in your beer. And we're about to cover the last kind of sugar that we're going to be covering for today, and that's going to shoot us into a discussion about fruit and how to use it. But first, we have a listener tasting. I'm trying to stay on top of these things. And one of our listeners, Jamie...
is that your New Year's resolution?
Stay on top of the beer. Yeah.
People send us beer and don't just, sit on, get to it.
Get to it. Even if we can't fit it in the show, I'm fitting it somewhere.
Yeah, good.
Now, Jamie, otherwise known as Brew Crew, sent Daniela a package for her birthday, and Doc, you're gonna like this. You better. I know you don't feel like drinking right now, but
I'm sure I do.
Okay, good. Because the man sent us a box of New Glarus.
Me.
A box of New Glarus.
Doc's mouth just hit the floor.
I told a brewer about this.
Holy oh my God.
Yeah. I told a California brewer about that. You guys know he's been on the show before.
Can I get up and dance?
And he goes,
it's radio.
Yeah, I know. He said the same thing. And this is a professional brewer. He's like, really? You're going to invite us over for that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so he sent us this box, and they also put his home brew in it, which we're going to taste in a minute. And I want to thank Brew Crew. We were so excited. Both everybody who sends us beer, our heartfelt thanks goes out to. And occasionally we get our favorites sent to us, and then not only our heartfelt thanks, but our jizz-filled thanks goes out to you too.
Yeah.
New Glarus is one of them. Yinzer sent us a box of sour beers.
We can't get New Glarus out here.
Exactly.
Kind of like you guys in Russian River.
That's right. It's exactly. And a lot of the sour beers that Yinzer sent, I've not been able to get to, and so just two fantastic packages. And I covet some of these gifts so much that last night I had a dream that we were doing a show here, and we had a couple guests. I didn't even know who they were. They were like blank-faced guests. And I said, the beer fridge is out back. Go ahead and grab a beer. And he comes back, and a little time goes by, and I notice that he's got a New Glarus in his hand. And I get all freaked out. I'm like, I'm like, shit, I didn't put it aside so that people wouldn't know, don't touch the fucking New Glarus.
Well, just to give Justin props, he's actually really good about, when you guys send beer, he puts it in there, puts it to the back, and said, don't touch that.
Yeah.
Even though it's been sitting there for 6 months, don't touch that. And he keeps it cold.
And on top of that, Daniela and I don't, go like, hey, it's
we're out of beer, what can we drink?
That's right. We gotta wait for Doc because we need to share some with Doc, and we make sure we share the wealth.
Yeah.
But I had a nightmare that someone took our New Glarus.
That poor guy was sweating
his face
and
was blank,
screaming.
but his beer wasn't.
Yeah. So let's do this real quick so that we can finish our discussion today too. Brew Crew also sent one of his homebrews, but he didn't send any documentation with it.
No, he just sent us a letter about the New Glarus.
About the New Glarus. So I don't know what it is, Doc, or how it's what's in it, but we'll taste it anyway and see what we got here. And I got a couple of other. We're going to finish all our tastings by the end of the show here.
Stouty.
Some leftovers.
Smells great.
It does smell great, and it smells a bit fruity. Is there fruit in there too?
No, it's just it's the stout.
Is it? Okay. Oh, it's a nice stout.
It is.
Dry.
Dry, very dry.
A good dry stout.
Mm-hmm.
I like it a lot.
Nice job.
Good head on it still too. I mean, I poured yours a little while ago, Doc, but mine's still hanging around.
They can pull it up and just shake it a little bit like that.
It goes right back.
And then you get a better smell of it that way.
This is a really nice beer. Very clean.
Yes.
Any criticism whatsoever that he might want to improve?
Nope.
Nothing, huh?
No, it's a very it's a very nice stout.
Yeah, I got a criticism. You only sent one bottle.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's
your criticism right there, buddy.
There is more though, Doc. If you'd like a little more.
I got 3 other beers in front of me.
We're going to do those at the end, though. So I'm not going to get to those.
The end of the BN.
So it's good stuff. Got a caller about New Glarus. John Foster's on the air. What's happening, John?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going real well.
Good.
You want to talk to us about New Glarus?
I have a story about New Glarus.
Do it.
So I dread traveling in the holidays during Christmas and Thanksgiving. And turns out my sister lives in Wisconsin, and she found a whole bunch of New Glarus cherry and raspberry at her local.
Ah.
Oh, my.
And so she said, come home for Christmas, and you can have all the beer.
Really?
Yeah.
So you went home for Christmas.
I got on a plane, I got on United, I braved the no-fly list that I'm on and everything.
Yeah, they got you tagged.
Yeah.
They do. Well, the only good thing about being on the no-fly list is that you can jump right to the front of the line.
That's very nice.
Yeah, they got that short line for you.
Exactly. Short bus, short line, right? Same thing.
So what do you got? You got a fridge full of New Glarus now?
I have a fridge full of New Glarus, and
He lives close, too.
Yeah, and I'm pretty close. I could drive there and bring more, but I'm not going to today.
No, that's all right, because we're not really going to drink ours today, too, either. I actually think we should have a New Glarus party.
Oh, exactly.
You get some brewers over, everybody who is craving this stuff like we do, and get you over here with yours. We'll have a New Glarus party.
That's perfect.
All right, John, thanks for the call, brother.
All right, see you.
Take care.
Dr. Scott, the listeners want to know more about the stout that we're tasting right now.
Okay.
Some characteristics of it. I mean, the first thing, it's really clean and dry. So it's a nice example of a dry stout. What other characteristics do you pick up?
The first thing is you smell it, and I don't detect any staleness to it at all. The head comes up real nice, and it holds a nice, creamy, thick head for quite a while.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
And by the way, I was completely wrong about that when I said it smells fruity in the beginning, because in the taste, there are no fruity off flavors whatsoever.
It could be a little more roasty, if anything.
Okay.
But not a lot more.
I like,
It's a little cold, so it's kind of hard.
Cold, yeah.
You know what? That fridge isn't even on. It's unplugged.
Because it's 32 degrees outside.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
That's a very nice stout,
Which is why I couldn't take a shower this morning.
I thought something stunk in here.
Yeah.
It's not, what's great about it is that it doesn't have that sort of acidic astringency that's easy to put in a stout. It doesn't have that at all.
It doesn't have the astringency, like too much roastiness.
Yeah.
You want a little bit?
Okay.
So that's why it's so easy drinking.
Yeah. Great beer.
We're going to brew a stout next time.
Well, we have a porter right now, so, we
talking to Vinny last night. He was having trouble, I said, with his stouts. With the one stout that they have, it just wasn't where they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And they effed up. And they let the glycol went a little ugly on them. And it got down to 48.
Uh-huh.
And so stopped fermenting.
Okay.
It just kind of got a stuck fermentation. So, we're going to heat it up a little bit. They heated it slowly. As soon as it got to 52, it started fermenting again.
Really?
Cal Ale.
Oh, that low.
And they just let it go at 52 or 53.
Yeah.
This is the best stout they've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet it was just really clean.
Yes.
And none of those fruity.
That's what's on tap at the tap house right now.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Well, all right. Good for him. That's a good... See? Sometimes the mistakes are the best thing that can happen.
What opened my eyes is like, oh, cool. Cal Ale will go down that far and still ferment. It won't go to sleep.
Well, plus, you got to consider the size of pitch he must have used, too. I mean, it's got to be a lot of yeast in there. You see what I'm saying? I think if I just pitched a vial of Cal Ale and put it at 52, I wonder if it would ferment, as opposed to a nice big starter.
We're talking you?
Well, temperature's temperature, whether I'm doing it or not.
I don't know. I think the brew gods have something to do with you.
They're pissed at me. As much help as I... Wait, what do I do for the brewing industry? I talk about beer.
You do.
And you drink a lot of beer.
And they're pissed at me.
Yes.
Bastards.
They don't want to give you that third thing. Like, you talk about it, you drink a lot, but they're not going to let you brew it.
They don't want me to touch. Yeah, don't brew it.
Make it.
Ass hat.
Yummy.
Good beer. Thank you very much, Brew Crew, for sending that in.
It's a real drinkable stout. It's not real roasty or really, really dry. It's real
balanced.
It's midstream. People that think, ick, dark beer, would like this one too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
People that shy away from that.
The perception is so wrong of dark beers, really.
It is.
Expect something very bitter and you get something so yummy.
That's right.
It's good.
All right, so thanks again. You too can send your beer into us if you want us to try it out. Just got to make sure you label every bottle with what it is, and send me an email. I'll give you the address.
We can't tell you exactly if it would fit into a certain style.
If we don't know what it is.
If you wanted to have a Irish stout, it's probably not that.
Yeah.
If it's a milk stout, I'll let you know tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, Doc will be sure to let you know how he's feeling tomorrow. All right, let us take our final part of our discussion into the last bit of sugar that I want to talk about. And first we're going to talk about the actual sugar that you're getting, and then we're going to talk about the different ways that you can use it. Now, what I'm talking about is fruit. Now, the sugar in fruit is fructose. Easy to remember, right, Doc?
Yes.
Fructose. Very easy. Just like the primary fermentable sugar in your wort is maltose, and it's going to make up about 40% of your fermentable sugars in there. Easy to remember because it's got the word malt in it. And
maltose.
And fructose, very easy because it's half of a fruit.
Fruity.
Much like JP.
Fruity.
Half a fruit.
Yeah, it's actually a hexose and a pentose.
It's got the other different chain in there too.
Yep.
Okay. What's a pentose?
It's a 5-chain sugar, 5-chain ring.
Okay.
Instead of a 6 ring, like a glucose is normal sugars.
Yep.
It's a 6
carbons.
6 carbons
One
in
oxygen.
a ring.
Yeah.
And
a pentose has
a pentose has 5.
5 carbons.
And this is
one oxygen.
One of 6 and one of 5. Joined together, and that's what makes
that's what makes it fructose.
And you need that enzyme to break that chain.
Otherwise it won't be fermentable.
Right.
Okay, interesting. So fructose is only fermentable if an enzyme breaks the chain.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. For obvious reasons,
some things can eat it the way it is, but those are things you don't want in your beer.
Gotcha. Not brewer's yeast then.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to use fruit as an added fermentable, you got to put it into primary fermentation. Is that right?
If you want to add the sugar quality to it, but you got to ask yourself when and why.
Which we're going to talk about. But if you want to boost your gravity from it to actually get more, residual like alcohol out of it, you'd have to put it in primary fermentation.
Put it in the primary, so it's going to eat that. On the other hand is you got to add that back into the equation.
Yeah.
If you're going to just add fruit to your already high gravity beer and you didn't want to have a 10% beer, you're probably going to have it.
That's right.
You can add it into the secondary and it's still going to ferment again.
Yes. You want to know what else I know, Doc?
What do you know?
I know that fructose is an isomer of glucose, but sweeter. I don't know what the fucking isomer is, but I know it's an isomer of glucose.
No, it's the wrong term.
That's what John Palmer said.
No.
Shame on you, John. I probably misquoted him. I shouldn't put it off on John.
Yeah. You probably misquoted
I most likely misquoted him. So never mind, Doc. I'm not going to tell you what else I know. It's not an isomer of glucose?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't even know where to find it anymore, didn't I? I wrote down all my page numbers except for the quote that I was wrong about.
It's a disaccharide.
Okay.
And but it's not glucose. Glucose is the single.
Yeah.
And
a monosaccharide.
Yeah. And this is a disaccharide.
Okay.
Where maltose is.
What's an isomer?
Isomer is kind of like the mirror image of the model.
I see.
And where you could have you've seen what a molecule looks like in a stick form.
Yes.
Look at the mirror image of it.
Okay.
And it looks like the mirror image.
Yeah.
That makes a difference to them.
I see.
To you, it looks, it's just the other side of that one. But to them, it has to do with how it behaves.
Gotcha. It's a lot like whether or not you're giving strippers dollar bills or dollar coins. It doesn't make a difference to you. It's the same amount, but it makes a big difference to them.
Because it's usually cold when you put it in that
Where was that
strap.
little girl, that
heavy.
poor girl, put the coin?
Exactly. So it makes a big difference. That's my point.
Although in Asia, you can do it.
You can just throw coins at them?
In Thailand, I've seen it happen.
You just chuck them?
Or you're giving them Canadian dollars instead of real dollars.
Yeah.
American dollars.
Don't be so cheap,
We
dog.
don't care, but they do.
They do, because it's not the same.
I'm never going to accompany you to a strip club anymore. You're just cheap.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about different forms of fruit that you can use. So this is if you're not exactly looking for a fermentable sugar, but you are looking to add fruit characteristics to your beer. I'm not going to go extremely into depth here because we could do an entire show on fruit. But I do, since we did talk about adding fruit, I want to at least throw some general information out there. A few forms of fruit. Obviously, there's whole and fresh fruit. If you're using whole fresh fruit, you should know that it really should be fully fully ripened. And you need to keep in mind that certain fruits, like strawberries, they won't ripen once they're off the vine. So that, for example, is kind of a difficult fruit to make sure is fully ripened. I mean, you would have had to buy it that way.
Well, strawberries aren't a good fruit to put in beer anyway.
No? Tough to use?
They don't impart a lot of flavor.
Okay.
They're tough to use. The kind of strawberries most people get are a certain variety that just aren't strawberry-y.
Okay.
And they're not a lot of there's not a lot of acid to them either. So that's another thing you got to worry about with fruit is how much acid is with the fruit.
Okay.
And when you're adding acid to the fruit, it actually adds to the flavor too.
I see.
So you can put a lot of strawberries in and come out like It's really easy to like, I guess so.
Do you get that kind of astringent flavor?
Yeah, you get the astringent flavor, but you just don't get a lot of strawberry out of it.
Okay.
It just doesn't. You're better off using one of those extracts.
Okay.
To get more of that.
Which we're going to talk about
when
too.
You're talking raspberries, cherries, peaches are another one notoriously or apricots that don't come through very well.
Oh, okay.
So you're better off with an extract.
Okay.
But it depends on what you're doing. When you're adding fresh fruit, you're adding a lot of water too.
Okay.
So you're going to dilute your beer down.
Yeah. All right, that's good to know.
Got some issues with that too.
So you're essentially lowering your gravity at that point. Yeah. Okay.
And it might be a wash to a certain extent because with the water, it's going to water down the beer. But you're going to add the fermentable sugars from the fruit. So.
Okay. Now, when you're using whole fresh fruits, they can be added whole, chopped, or pureed. You're just essentially taking the fresh fruit and throwing it in. The Belgians they really like to use cherries in Kriek, and they throw pit and all into the beer. And the pit actually adds kind of a nutty flavor on top of the cherry flavor that they get too.
From the arsenic.
There you go.
But,
which, by the way, sounds really dangerous.
But it's not enough to where it would matter.
Small
anyway.
amounts.
But a lot of with winemaking, most of the flavor and the color comes from the skins.
Yeah.
So they use a lot of that.
To get it.
And with the Belgian guys, they use a certain kind of cherry. It's not just any old cherry you can get at the grocery store.
They're not throwing maraschino cherries in there.
No, which aren't even cherries.
Yeah. They're evil pornographic hybrids of cherries.
I like them. Maybe because of the pornographic hybrid thing.
But it's important to know that you can add whole fruit there. Another form of fruit now is frozen fruit, and
which is probably your best way to do it. Or take your fresh fruit and freeze it
yourself
because it breaks down a lot of the cell walls.
It kind of opens it up and gets those flavors and the sugars more readily available, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you want to, if you have fresh fruit, freeze it first and then thaw it.
Yeah.
And it breaks down the cell walls so everything's more available.
And that's not just Dr. Scott's big brain saying that. It's in the books as well. All the books really say that a great way to add fruit is to use frozen fruit because of how open it is.
Right. Are you going to talk about pectin?
No, I'm going to let you talk about pectin, but only when we get to where it's added, because I do have that in my notes.
Okay.
Okay. The third form that Doc has mentioned also is concentrates and syrups, and those should be added into fermentation due to the amount of sugars and flavors that are available when you're using concentrates. Because it kind of goes without saying, when it's a concentrated form, everything is concentrated, including the sugars. So it's a good place to put your concentrates in is fermentation. And again, we're going to talk about where you can add all this stuff too. The final version of fruit that I have here are extracts.
Yes.
Now, it's important to note that extracts contain no sugar. It does not have the fructose in it that we're talking about in these other forms. So extracts should be added during bottling or kegging. Because you're not going to have any residual sugar.
Yeah, you're not going to get any residual sugar.
And if you remember...
could be an issue if you add stuff late and it doesn't get fermented, and if you're actually bottling, you're going to have bottle bombs. Because it will ferment back in the bottle.
Yeah.
And you're going to have either overcarbonated or exploding bottles because you're actually just adding sugar back to it. And it will ferment it.
So a beauty of extracts is
you can add it. You could add it at the end and titrate it to the point where that's just enough.
Yeah. Now, if you remember into some of our shows from last year, Dr. Scott has this fantastic coconut Porter or stout? Was it a porter or stout?
It was a stout.
A coconut stout. And he uses an extract at bottling, and really, he tested a few of them and really figured out that exactly one drop was the perfect amount for his bottle, and he put a drop in every bottle. But anyway, just an example of how you can use an extract at the end.
I do the same thing with fruit beers now, because I can dial that in. I have a boysenberry wheat that just is killer.
Yeah.
And I just dial it in drops per bottle and then ramp it up.
And you're all set.
And put that in. And I don't have to deal with stained buckets, which I've had before, or mucky stuff growing in there that I didn't know it was on there. Was it Oregon fruit puree? That's really good because that's pasteurized.
Is that a brand?
Yes, it comes in cans. You can get it at most homebrew shops.
Okay.
And that stuff will work really well, but you need to put that in the secondary.
Okay.
So that works out really well.
Now, I want to tell you a great thing about extracts is that you can make up for where you fucked up.
That's a quote.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic slogan.
That's right.
You can make up where you fucked up.
Yeah. So, here would be my recommendation. If you're experimenting with making a fruit beer, and whatever fruit you've chosen, and you want to add, whether it be fresh fruit or frozen fruit, and you find at the end of the process you didn't get the fruit flavor you needed, well, guess what? Buy yourself a little bit of the extract, too, because at the end, when you taste it just before you're about to bottle or keg it, and it's not enough for you, throw a little extract in there.
Certain people I know just keep that extract right next to the taps, and they just put a couple drops in. And
even at serving.
Even at serving, and just to tweak it out to where they want.
Yeah.
It also, don't go by what it says on the bottle. Add 4 ounces to 5 gallons. Never, ever do that. Because they don't know what your beer is.
Yeah.
And you really want to try it out. I would do a 12-ounce pour and see what it takes per bottle, and then figure out how much you have and ramp it up from there, and then still take about 20% off and try it out. Put it in the keg at 20% less than what you figured out mathematically with your 12-ounce beer, and try it from there.
There you go. But it's good to know that you can experiment with all these fruits.
Yeah.
And not feel like, I didn't get a fruity beer, because you can throw a little
so many
extract
times
in there.
when you put it in the primary or the secondary, you're just like, I can kind of taste it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the judges will say too. It's like, well, it could be more fruity on this.
Yeah.
I'm not. That's the base beer comes through, but I'm not getting enough of this.
Right.
And you can titrate it in.
That's right. Now here's the deal with these different forms of fruit. Extract excluded. Okay, so I'm talking about the whole fruit, the frozen fruit, the concentrates. The amount of fruit in various forms pretty much doesn't vary. It's consistent. It's still measured in pounds of whole fruit per gallon of beer. So that equation doesn't change.
Right.
It's pounds of whole fruit per gallon of beer. And a nice general rule is 1 to 2 pounds of whole fruit per gallon of beer. So whether that be in the form of puree or concentrate, the equation is still the same. Pounds of fruit per gallon. And a good rule, according to the books, is 1 to 2.
Yeah, New Glarus, it's 1 pound of cherries in their Wisconsin Red. Per gallon.
Okay.
That's a lot of cherries.
Yeah, that does sound like a lot of cherries. I think we have a bottle of that, or two. Dang. Sent to us, yeah. Okay, before I move on to when you can add this fruit, which we're going to do fairly briefly, a question came through, Doc, is a question about purees, canned purees.
Yeah.
They want to know how you figure out the sugar contribution in a canned puree. And that's a tough one.
That is tough. I would look for other recipes that have used it in that type of beer and try it that way.
Yeah.
You can go with Justin's 1 to 2 pounds per gallon on that one.
Yeah. Calculating the exact amount,
it's tough.
It varies by fruit too, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Actually, I think it does come up to where you can actually add in gravity points per gallon.
Yeah.
Per that.
I know that according to Designing Great Beers, in pretty much just calculating both for flavor and gravity, like I said, the equation still remains the same. It's pounds per gallon, and you're sticking with 1 to 2 pounds. How many gravity points that adds? It's going to vary a little bit.
Just remember, if you put it in the primary, it's going to scrub out almost all the flavor.
Okay.
You might get a nose to it, but you're not going to get the flavor. and certain fruits just don't come through very well.
Yeah.
So most people add it into the secondary.
Okay. So that's going to wrap up our different forms, but we're going to talk about when to add the fruit. But first, we got to take a drunk of the week call, Dr. Scott. I think we got Crotch Rod on the line here.
Nice.
Trying to be drunk of the week. Crotch, are you there, brother?
I'm not trying.
You're there.
You're doing, huh?
I'm there.
Really? We haven't heard from you in a while, so I like it when we haven't heard from folks in a while and they call in hammered.
Oh, man, it's playoff football time.
Yeah.
Freaking got a pale ale and a brown on tap. Oh,
You just been drinking all night?
Good times.
You got that new video coming out, too. Is that going to be like drunk video of the year?
No, I was sober for at least half of it.
That's good. Until you started talking to the horse?
I saw the promo, but I didn't see pants or no pants. So
I'll tell you what, I love that promo, Crotch.
Yes, that's good.
With the little chips theme.
Yeah. Exactly. Go to crotchrot.com. Yeah, it is an all-star cast. You go to crotchrot.com, you'll know what we're talking about.
So when did you start drinking?
I started drinking right after I hit my numbers.
Hit your numbers?
Once I hit my match numbers. Oh, are you talking about in the video or?
No, today.
You're talking today. Yeah.
See? Well, you got me confused here.
That's easy.
I started drinking today about noon.
Noon. Attaboy. That's a good noon right there.
That's 9 o'clock our time.
It's especially nice since I didn't wake up until about 11:30.
Well, I like that you waited the standard 30 minutes before cracking a beer.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Listeners are saying that they think that Crotch has hit the cousin too much tonight, rather than drinking.
Oh, they think you're...
a little mixing?
You a little high?
No. I don't do that stuff, believe it or not.
Nah, he doesn't. Hey, he works on people and shit. He's a nurse. Can't be smoking the weed.
Knowing Top Shelf, I don't believe that.
Yeah, they can make me drop a urine at any time. It might be 0.18 when I drop it. I won't be high.
Yeah. I mean, they don't even have to send you to the drug center to do that. You work in the place they test it. They got the cup handy. Piss in this.
I know, you walk past that dog and the first thing is, does he smell pot?
All right, Crotch. Go ahead.
I actually had a question for Doc on some of this fruit stuff.
Okay.
I live outside of Plant City, and we're getting ready to have a big strawberry festival thing coming up here, so where strawberries are going to be available, just nonstop by the pallets.
Yeah.
And I was almost thinking about doing a wheat and mashing strawberries. And what do you think about that?
I don't think it's going to help because most of the sugars are simple sugars there. Mm-hmm. And I think mashing, you're going to just get more alcohol and no strawberry coming through. But the fact that they're available like that, get the ripest things you can. As Justin said, they don't ripen after you pick them.
Yeah.
And they have certain types that are more flavorful than others. But if you can get them to say, look, all I want is the ripest things you can give me, and I put them into the secondary.
Okay.
And see what happens.
Would you puree them?
A lot of color from that too?
Yeah, you probably get a lot of color from it too.
Especially, you said it's in a wheat, right?
In a wheat beer, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool idea. I kind of like that.
But in the fact that they're everywhere around there, these guys, they're not want to sell the ripest things they can.
Yeah.
So
they've already started picking now, and it comes out in around February.
Wow.
February.
See, that's weird.
So,
we don't get them till May around here, and then they go hard around here for about 2 months. But
yeah, they're already gearing up toward it, and you can already start seeing the stands on the side of the road. And
I wish I could go hard for 2 months.
Me too.
I figured that would be a quote too. I would go for the things that just ask them. I want the ripest things you have.
Yeah.
Don't give me anything that's not ripe, and put it in the secondary.
And throw an asshole in there when you're asking them. That always helps.
Yeah.
Well, I'll mix the mash with a little butt finger, so I'm not worried about that.
No, I don't mean your beer. I mean, say, give me the ripest things you have. Asshole.
I don't really see the point of making putting them in the mash.
Okay.
Because it's almost all fructose and things, so I really don't see.
And one other thing I was kind of wondering about is, I heard, the 2 pounds of fruit per gallon or whatever. But where's that range of keeping it in the line of a beer to where it crosses the line into almost a wine. I mean, when you've got that much fruit going in.
Well, I think it has to do with the shape of the fruit when you get it. Is it fresh with a lot of water in it? Is it dried fruit? Is it puree? Concentrated stuff. I don't know. And how much the fermentables are actually going to come across is that.
Okay.
But with strawberries, it's harder to get a flavor and an aroma coming out of it.
Yeah.
Because there's just not a lot comes out that way, so you got to use more. So don't feel bad about using. If you're going to make 10 gallons, I would put 2 pounds or 3 pounds per gallon in one 5-gallon and maybe 1 pound in the other and see what happens.
And by the way, just because your local commodity is one, fruit or vegetable, doesn't mean that, like, for example, garlic's really big out here. There's a huge garlic festival.
Yes.
I ain't brewing a garlic porter next week.
But you know what? If we go there, they will have a garlic beer.
I think
they
have
have garlic ice cream. They have garlic everything.
Have you ever had a garlic beer?
No.
That's got to be nasty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be. You know what got me wondering about mashing with the stuff, though, was the pumpkin ales. I mean, people throw tons of pumpkin into their mash, and so I was going, why the hell not the strawberry?
Well, because pumpkins are not really a fruit. They're more of a vegetable, and they got more starches.
And less fructose.
And less sugar in them.
Yeah.
So and basically what is a starch is a long chain sugar. So you need to put them in the mash to have them broken up. So you got to get some benefit out of that. Yeah. With the fruit, it's already pretty much just sugar.
Okay.
But you know what? Feel free to experiment. I would even put half in the mash, and then try to do some more. But you're only going to try to get the fermentables out of it that way. You're not going to get the strawberry-ness out of it.
Yeah. And by feel free to experiment, he doesn't mean bring the farmer home with you and throw her in the mix. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He means try different quantities and fruits. You got me?
No.
try different fruits, he said.
All right, Crotch, you are officially Drunk of the Week. And
smoking.
Thanks for the call and the questions. We've missed you, man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, well, I'll talk to you soon.
Later.
Cheers.
Did he ever get his boil kettle or mash tun back? Remember it got stolen?
I don't think it ever got stolen. I think the whole thing was a hoax.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So before
I felt bad for nothing?
You did.
Yeah, you did. You lost sleep for nothing.
Damn.
So before we get into more fruitiness, I want to say happy birthday to our own Sven.
Oh, happy birthday, Sven.
Yeah, tomorrow, the 15th, actually, is his birthday.
Nice.
Happy birthday from the Brewing Network.
Is he hanging out with Push tonight and getting
That's
shitty?
so funny. That's the first question I asked, too. No, he's hanging out with his family.
They're not really friends, are they?
I think they're just partners, just like us, Justin.
Yeah, they don't like each other. They just work together.
Well, we haven't seen them together ever.
That's true.
That's true. They might be alternate egos, actually.
We've heard them together. They've been in here separately.
Yeah.
Who knows? They could be the same person. I don't know.
Caller, you're on the Brewing Network. What's happening?
That would be me. I'm Drunk of the Week.
You're too late. Crotch Rod already got Drunk of the Week. Who's this?
This is a bike too many. I've been up for like 2 days and just went to Magnolia for 2 hours.
Really?
So Crotch Rod hasn't got a stone on me.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
Yeah.
You're up 2 days and then decide to go to Magnolia.
Yeah, look at you trying to dethrone him. What have you been up for 2 days for?
Work is a 4-letter word.
Who is this?
It's too many bicycles or something.
That's your name, Too Many Bicycles?
Yeah. What was it again?
A bike too many.
A bike too many. Yeah. What do you live in San Francisco or are you just working out here?
No, I live out here.
You
I
do
had a
live
Burning Man meeting on Saturday morning.
Nice.
Went to work and it
never
ended.
What are you on the committee?
Yeah.
You involved in this whole lawsuit nonsense going on?
No, I'm just Stranger. I'm like Buzzcut. Well, no, I'm not like Buzzcut. That's wrong.
Nobody is like Buzzcut.
That's true. All right, well, I'll tell you what. You may have dethroned Crotch Rot. You sound a bit hammered.
Oh, well, might be. I took the bus home, you know.
The short bus?
No, it was the full-size bus.
That, and you live here, yet you've adopted an accent in your drunkenness. You sound Canadian. So,
I grew up too close to those stupid people.
Any drunk who adopts an accent deserves Drunk of the Week.
Can you say your social security number?
Don't. All right. All right.
Yeah.
You're it. We dethroned Crotch.
I think he did.
All right. Thanks for the call, brother.
Right on.
Ow! He's like, right on.
Crotch has only been up like 11 hours.
Yeah.
So
but he's been drinking those 11 hours.
Update, Crotch's equipment actually did get stolen.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you felt bad for a reason.
Oh, good.
All right, let me get through this so that we can taste our beers, and we're gonna wrap things up tonight.
Wrap it up.
We want to, now that we've covered the fruits, I want to go over real quick when to add fruit, and we're gonna cover some of the things Doc briefly mentioned while we do this. A few ways to do it. You can add it to hot wort, which is otherwise known as steeping your fruit. And I had a question actually come through, about different bacteria that are in fruit and contaminating your beer. Well, steeping is one way that actually kind of serves to pasteurize. Other people say it also adds kind of that cooked fruit flavor, which if you've ever had any hot fruit dessert, then you know the difference.
The apple cobbler kind of thing, or the cherry cobbler. It's when it's hot, it's different. It's different.
It's a little caramelized. It's just like cooking anything. So you can do that. But here's what people fear. This is what is potentially the downside of steeping your fruit, and that is that people fear that the pectins contained in fruit result in a haze in your finished beer.
Yep.
Now, if you are worried about that, there's a remedy, because you can counter that by using pectinase, which is an enzyme that'll counter the pectins.
Yeah, well, a lot of people they'll add it to their mead or their beer because it causes a pectin haze. It breaks down a lot of that nastiness, the long chain things that cause haze in it.
Okay,
but if you're making a cherry stout or
then you don't care.
An apricot stout, who would make that? I don't know, but it won't matter. Yeah. But if you're making a nice light wheat beer, an American wheat beer with that in it, you're gonna have an issue.
You're gonna have an issue with the haze. So you gotta keep that in mind. If you're gonna steep them, you're gonna need some pectinase to help break down that haze. All right, another way to do it is to add during fermentation. You can add the fruit. This should be done if a portion of your fermentables, like we've been talking about, is gonna come from the fruit, the fructose that's in fruit. If you actually want part of your gravity to come from fruit, from that fermentable, then you need to put it in during fermentation. So that's why, that's pretty much the primary reason that you would put your fruit in during primary fermentation.
Yeah, to add fermentable gravity points.
Yeah. The other way to do it is to add to your secondary. Now, this again is a good choice if you're not looking to add fermentables, but you do want to reduce the chances of bacterial infection. And that's because when you go to secondary, you already have some alcohol content present in your beer,
and the pH is pretty low.
So
a lot of those bacteria don't like it.
It'll inhibit all that natural yeasty craziness that's on fruit and bacterial craziness. Right. Secondary is a really good choice, and this actually seems to be the more popular choice for adding fruit.
You get more fruit flavor and more fruit aroma.
Yeah,
that way. Definitely.
The other great part about adding it to secondary is that you can control the exact amount of time that the fruit is in contact with your beer. Mm-hmm. So if, for example, you added the fruit either in the boil or during primary fermentation, well, primary fermentation isn't always an exact science. I mean, sometimes it's going to go on for 5 days, sometimes it's going to go on for 8 days, et cetera, and you don't know how long then your fruit's going to be in contact with beer. If you wait until primary's done and you put it in the secondary, well, the fruit's in there as long as you keep it in secondary.
Yes, exactly.
And this is a good thing because as you start to decide exactly how much fruit you want to be using and how well it's working for a particular beer, you're really going to want to narrow down a lot of the factors. And when you know exactly what you want, well, you're going to want to know how much time that fruit's in the beer. So secondary is a good choice for you there. Last option, which we mentioned earlier, is if you're using extracts, you're going to add them during bottling or kegging. And that's a real simple process, and you're just going to decide how much you want to add.
So much less hassle, too.
Yeah.
You don't get the haze. You can dial it in exactly what you want. So many times I've done fruit, it's like, that ain't quite what I wanted because it's just not enough.
Yeah.
And even if you do fruit, you can still add the extract into it and boost it up some.
That's right. If you didn't impart enough of that fruity flavor, so I mean, Crotchrod actually with his question is a perfect example of somebody who should go pick up strawberry extract because even as he's using this strawberry in his wheat beer, like Doc is warning him of, he's afraid he's not going to get enough strawberry flavor in there. If at the end it's not strawberry enough, you can throw some strawberry extract in and still get the flavor he was looking for while reaping the color benefits that he got of throwing strawberry Arena wheat beer.
And you can dial it up to the point where when does it cease being beer?
Yeah.
And being this fruity thing.
Fruit drink.
Yes.
High C.
Uh-huh. And you can easily go too much. As it says, add 4 ounces to 5 gallons. Never, ever go with that one.
That's insane.
It is. It might be enough and it might not.
In the Jamil's recipe chocolate hazelnut porter that Daniela and I brewed yesterday, Doc,
Nice.
we are going to have to add, according to the recipe, because this can be done not just with fruits, but with legumes as well. We're supposed to add 25 milliliters of hazelnut flavoring, which is an extract of hazelnut. 25 mils, not a lot. For 5 gallons of beer.
It might be with that. You add 25 milliliters of peppermint.
And then it's going
to be ugly.
A good point.
So you got to go with each an individual extract.
Yeah.
On that one.
Yeah.
25 milliliters of vanilla is going to be crazy.
That's right. And every one of you has had sort of a seasonal beer that just tasted like you were drinking nutmeg, for example.
Yeah.
It's a real strong one. You add too much nutmeg extract, you can forget about it. You might as well have eaten nutmeg.
Yes.
Or
you get high in nutmeg, by the way.
Is that right?
Yes.
In large quantities?
You can, yeah. Well, you
or in any quantity.
Grind it and snort it.
Now, what kind of high are we talking here?
Yeah, it's kind of a hallucinogenic.
Is it really?
Kind of gig,
and is it like a quickie or does it stick around?
I'm not saying.
In theory.
In theory, it's about a 12-hour high.
Is that right?
In theory.
Now, are we like one line will do that, or you gotta snort a bunch of this stuff?
You ask me way too many questions.
I can't believe
we're gonna ask this off the air.
Yeah.
You can do banana peels too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard that one. You smoke them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that do?
Nothing.
I want to let's.
It doesn't do anything on the air.
What is it? Banana peels?
Banana peels. Yeah.
That's legal, isn't it?
Sure, it's bananas.
Yeah.
Smoke whatever you want.
We're gonna do that later on.
We're smoking banana peels.
Yeah, we have bananas here. You didn't eat yours.
Can we just put it in the hookah? Like with
you gotta get the inside. Why am I discussing this?
Why are we talking about this?
You gotta freebase it. You need a crack
dry it out and some other things.
I see. All right. All right, and that's going to do it for the Hell Freezes Over discussion, where I've just given you a chemistry lesson, of course, with the help of the good doctor.
I'm very proud of you
I am
tonight.
too.
Really, you just became so much hotter and more attractive.
Thank you. I'm going to drop my voice
Oh,
now.
yeah, very nice.
No, I'm just glad that I didn't have to be corrected too much by Doc, although, of course, he wasn't here for the beginning of the session. I may get emails for days on end about my descriptions of sugar molecules.
Okay, that's okay.
But I do want you to know, listen, none of this is my experience. Very little of it is my experience or my words. I really recommend most of my research. 90% of it was done from Designing Great Beers, written by Ray Daniels,
which is my book.
Doc's and his favorite book. He talks about it all the time.
Because I don't see it anymore.
You lent it to me. What the hell do you want?
I think I left it here.
No, you said you can don't be an Indian giver.
What?
Is that politically correct anymore?
No.
What does it mean? Native American giver.
It means you can't give stuff or like lend it out and then take it back. Like say, oh, now you can't have that.
Why do you refer to Native Americans?
Because that's what we did to the Indians.
Yeah, we're like, here, you can have this, and then we took it back.
That's so true, you stupid crackers.
Yeah. Let's not start talking about whose country did what to who.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta go.
And the other book was How to Brew by John Palmer, and really they're both like I've said before, they can both be very basic and then get really serious too, and break things down. So I want you to know, I want to give them props that that's where the majority of this discussion came from, and you too should get these books and check it out for yourself. Okay, before we do go today, though, we got a couple more beers to taste. And these are ones that were in our fridge from last year. If you remember in last week's show, we had 3 unlabeled, unknown beers left. And that's what these are. So we don't know what they are or necessarily who they're from, but we're going to taste them anyway.
This one does have a label, but it's all like mushy-mashy, and it says, I think it says
smeared.
Stop Ewok.
Okay, that's what we'll say it's from. So Stop Ewok. This is your beer that we're about to taste. And it's a little bit of a gusher.
Gusher, yeah. But it's pushing CO2 out the top.
Oh, definitely in fact, here it comes. Okay, so Stop Ewok is a gusher. Doc's stroking the top of the bottle to see if we can get it. Yeah, I've brewed a beer like that before. It looked just like that.
And it's actually very turbid.
Okay.
I can see that through the bottle.
Okay. Now, a gusher, in case you don't know the terminology, you probably do, but it's just basically means it wasn't done fermenting when you put it in that bottle, or it could be infected as well, which caused a whole other kind of fermentation to happen. And it's kind of excessively carbonated. In fact, some of them are so bad that they'll explode right there in the bottle. I actually had a bunch of bottle bombs when I brewed an ESB one time, and no, it was a pale ale. That's right, and that stuff just exploded all over my cabinet. I drank it, though.
You'll drink this, too.
It's in my nature.
I'm going to guess this is an IPA. It's about the color of one, and it kind of tastes like one. And it's really, really carbonated.
Is it good?
I think, well, here.
No, hang on. Is it good?
Here, have some.
We haven't tried it yet.
We haven't really tried it. It's like mostly all foam.
It's all foam. We can't get to the beer part.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if whoever sent this in noticed this in other bottles, or if it was just ours.
It smells totally fruity.
It smells fruity. It smells a little saison-y, too, which might coincide with whatever infection was going on there.
It's not horrible by any means. It's just overcarbonated, which
it's actually not horrible at all.
No. It's just overcarbonated, so you either bottled it too soon or you got an infection.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of dry, and then if it's got an infection, it will keep fermenting in the bottle.
Yeah,
and it actually causes more carbonation, but it gets it really dry too.
Yeah. Now, this is an example of why people will say you should leave it in, whether it be your primary or secondary, whatever it is that you do, you should leave your wort in there for 14 days, because even if it looks like it's done, it might not be. And you go ahead and throw it in the bottle with a bunch of corn sugar on top of that, and guess what? You just made your yeast really happy.
I mean, this is, and the fact that it's so turbid, which could be two things. It could be, I can smell the hops.
Yep.
It could be the hops,
which will
keep
make it
turbid
cloudy
like that, or it could be the bacterial infection.
Sure.
Although when it says ferment for 5 days, yeah, right. They don't know what temperature you're fermenting at. If you're fermenting at 72, 5 days is cool. If you're fermenting at 64 or up and down, with the temperature,
that changes things.
You're not going to know.
Yeah, and then just you got to remember that just because it looks like it's not doing anything doesn't mean it isn't doing anything. So just hang in there, have a little patience.
And don't bottle while your wife is vacuuming.
Why is that?
Because it stirs everything up in the air, and you get all those nasties, wild yeast or whatever, into the bottling bucket.
And this is why Jamil and his family put on cryogenic suits every time they bottle. They put on masks, and they go into the clean room, and I don't know what else they do. But yeah, that's a good point, Doc. You don't just want stuff flying all over the place. So if the wife turns on the vacuum when you're bottling, you throw something in her direction.
The funny thing is they seem to do that when you're bottling because they're pissed.
And they know.
Oh, they're like, I'm going to freaking vacuum. You're going to do that. And then they just vacuum. How many times was your wife vacuuming? She goes, yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to try another one. Like I said, we got 3 unlabeled unknowns.
Let's go to the light one.
Okay. Yeah, we have one in a 22-ounce bomber that looks real clear, and that's...
It's clear.
It was probably a hef. It's been sitting in the fridge for 6 months.
It's a 22-ounce bomber. It's got a bird on the top.
I think it's an EJ Fair bottle
cap. It looks like an EJ Fair
bottle cap, yeah. I think somebody shops at B3 who sent that.
It's a black overrun bottle cap.
I think it might be one of my beers, and I just mixed it up.
Why the hell am I opening this then?
Yeah, we already know what that's gonna. With the evaluation of that's gonna be.
The yeast in the bottom is settled all down. It's a kind of a thick thing on the bottom. So let's
should reuse that.
You're so cheap.
You would.
I am cheap. Let me see that.
See this beer. I don't think you could brew this beer.
Why? Because it's clean and clear.
Yeah, it's clean and light.
Yeah. If it's not stinky and dirty, it can't be mine. Is that what you're saying? I'll have you know I'm half
your underwear.
I'll have you know I'm practically a chemist now, Doc.
Yeah, I saw that.
Ah, man. I'm going to start reading stuff from now on.
Just put the chemistry book in the bathroom, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, I'm not drinking this.
Really? You smelled it and you say no?
Look at the color of it.
Ooh, it is a little stinky. As Mike McDowell would say, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Look at the color. It's almost...
You saying it looks like urine?
Well, it looks like a very light
I just carbonated my light lager, and it looks like this, but it doesn't smell like this.
It smells like plastic.
No, it smells like...
Oh, my gosh.
It smells like cardboard.
Yes.
Plastic cardboard?
Papery cardboard, like wet paper, wet cardboard.
Yeah, it does. It's true.
And
That's true.
That's because it's old. It's been sitting in your refrigerator way too long. Or the fact that it got a lot of oxygen in it actually will age it a lot faster.
Oh, yeah, it was a half at one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Please dump this, Chet, would you?
Don't you think, Doc, that used to be a half? I'm getting. I know I got to fight through the other flavors, but there is a little banana in there and some other things happening. I think that used to be a half.
You're right. It tastes like plastic and phenolic.
Yeah.
Not good.
My bad. It could. Let's not even criticize the poor guy, whoever it is, because it could have been great.
It could have been great. Hefts do not age well.
Yeah. 6 months ago might have been a nice beer.
That's probably when it hits your refrigerator.
See, that's why we are staying on top of these things, to make sure that everybody gets a proper evaluation.
I wish we would have more of this stout.
Yeah, we drank.
Well, we got another dark one coming up.
Crew stout.
Looks like a Bass bottle. Is that a Bass? No, it's
It's either a Fat Tire or a Bass bottle.
Yeah.
Be careful when you reuse your
bottles. I don't know, it has fruit on this side.
Not that you shouldn't reuse them. Just make sure they're clean. You know? All right, so we're going to pour this last one, and then we're going to wrap up the Hell Freezes Over show and call it a night.
You know who's coming to the area? Terrace, and he's going to bring us beer.
Taurus.
In 2 weeks.
Oh, Token?
Token.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is he going to come hang out for the show?
I think so. He's bringing us beer.
Beautiful.
Wow, we never had a black guy in here.
Yeah, we haven't. He'll be the first black guy in the BN studio.
Excellent. He could be the first everything. He likes that.
He does. He's our first black listener. He'll be the first black guy in the studio.
First black brewer.
How long have I lived here? I don't know if a black person... No, that's not true.
Our friend...
I have one black friend, and
right.
He's been in the studio.
Yes, he has.
But he acts really white, however that is.
We don't know Taurus either.
Yeah. He's like his favorite band is, I don't know,
like
Pearl
ABBA?
Jam or something. Or ABBA. Yeah. I said, you got any ABBA? This is our last beer of the day, and we don't know who it's from. It looks like a porter or a stout, just off of my...
It could be a flat barley wine, too, for all I know.
Smells porter stouty, though, too.
It's probably high alcohol because it's got...
Did you just say, uh-oh, Daniela?
Yeah. No, I just said...
No, try to swirl it, and there's like, it's either... it won't hold a head. So it's probably high alcohol.
Yeah.
I think it's it smells like a barley wine to me,
actually. It kind of... That's what... I'm going with barley wine.
Me too.
But I haven't tasted it yet.
What do you think?
Barley wine.
Is it?
But it's...
I
don't know.
It's not too great?
No. It's very thin.
I don't think barley wine. I'm going to stick to porter. I think it maybe was a bit like a robust porter.
I'm going with porter, too.
It's terrible.
I think he was going for a big porter, like a robust porter, but it's real thin. Really thin.
Yeah. It's not horrible.
No, it's not. There's nothing wrong. It's not infected. It's clean. Yeah, but it's real thin. I'll tell you what, some of the flavor characteristics are right on for a porter.
Exactly.
It has a nice, it's roasty. It's a little bit nutty. It's got all of that. It just has no body to back any of it up.
Yeah, and it doesn't have enough carbonation.
Now, is this an example, kind of talking about our discussion, where he would have wanted a nice dextrinous malt? He would have wanted some dextrins in here? Or is that not how he would have added body to this beer?
You can actually add a lot of mouthfeel just with carbonation.
Okay.
And this doesn't have any.
It's flat. Yeah.
It's kind of flat. So it'll be a whole different beer if you add carbonation to it.
Okay.
I'm a big proponent of the proper carbonation on whatever beer it is.
Yeah.
And it would actually probably come alive a lot more with some carbonation. Like you said, the flavors are there.
Yeah.
It's just a little thin in the body.
Yeah.
Maybe a higher mash temperature if he wasn't doing all extract.
Yeah.
And
but a great aftertaste. The flavor really hangs around in a nice way. It's not too acidic. I like it.
It's too dark to see if it's bottle condition. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't tell if there's those little hanger-oners in the bottom.
I don't know if I'd change the recipe that much. Maybe some carapils, but definitely carbonation.
Yeah.
Maybe you could win our next kegging system.
There you go.
And you can dial it in
exactly where you want.
Right where you want.
Yeah. Overall, good job. It's I think
I do too. It just needs, maybe we got a bad bottle, maybe the cap was leaking a little bit.
Yep.
Because there's just no carbonation. But you saw what I did when I looking at it. I had a preconceived idea of what I'm going to drink.
Yeah.
Appearance, they only give you 3 points for appearance.
Right.
But you know what? It sets the stage for this whole thing.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, well, what's this? So when I taste it, if I'm disappointed, and what I'm already think I'm going to taste, it's going to be an issue.
And expectations play such a huge role.
Exactly.
The first time I tried Sully's IPA out of the can, as soon as the can touched my mouth, I was like, oh shit. Because I'm used to it being bad out of a can.
A bad can.
But it wasn't, but it did affect my expectations.
Or, when they do that with their shirt and you see what the big cans look like.
That affects my expectations too.
Expectations just go out the door.
I don't want you talking about other cans.
How do you know we were talking about other cans?
I've noticed.
Setters or pointers.
All right, that's going to do it for the Hell Freezes Over show. Next week, though, is I'm excited about next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've done a What You Need to Brew equipment-wise show. We've done that before. Next week, we're going to talk about all the other cool shit you could add.
We're going to take it up a notch.
Yeah, but the goal is so that you can figure out how to spend your hard-earned dollars, because some of those things are going to profoundly affect your beer. Others aren't.
Why you need this, why you need that, why this affects that so much, and what's more bang for your buck.
That's right.
What's your next purchase?
That's right.
If you're just doing carboys in the corner of the kitchen.
Yep. Maybe you want to do something else.
Maybe you want to do the next thing of what's going to be your biggest bang for your buck.
So we're going to break it down kind of step by step so to help you decide on if you have a limited brewing budget, what to spend it on.
You're going to buy the next thing no matter what. No matter what the wife says.
You're still
going to buy the next thing.
Eventually.
And you can't go out and buy a 1550 right away.
Yeah.
But what's your next level up? And I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I started out in buckets on the stove. Trashed a couple of stoves. Trashed a couple of buckets.
Yeah.
And it just moves up. What's your next biggest thing? What's going to make the biggest improvement in my beer? The next thing up. I had sawhorses. 3-level sawhorses
holding your stuff,
holding everything up, and I was pouring stuff in the top and everything. So I didn't start out with a big sculpture either.
Right. And we're going to help you, figure out if that's what you need to do. And Chris Graham from Beer, More Beer is going to come in here. If you listened to the Frugal Brewing Show with Chris, you'll know that he's really good about telling you where you should spend your money and how you can save cash. And so we thought he'd be perfect to come in here and tell us, what equipment is for what. On top of that, he kind of has a theory about good equipment versus bad equipment, and we want to get that out of him too. So that's next week's show, a part of our Extra Things in Brewing series.
Nice.
And the week after that, we're actually doing a live show from Downtown Joe's with Colin Kaminsky out there in Napa. Doc isn't going to make that one, but we're doing 2 other live shows in February from there, and Doc will be around for
I'll
those
see if I can
ones.
call into the show.
Okay.
I'll be...
Well, I think we got Jameel coming down, so he's going to help us out with that, and I'm pretty sure our topic for that is, by the way, it's the off weekend in between the Super Bowl, so I guess it's the last weekend of this month. And we're going to be covering fermentation vessels. So if you just want a conical from the PN's Conical Christmas, a lot of people don't know how to use it. Everyone knows they want a conical, but they don't know why.
And Chris and I have been shooting emails back and forth, and just to get down the steps and how to take care and deal with your fermenter, because it's a conical. You never had this thing. You dealt with buckets or carboys.
Right.
Now you got stainless steel.
That's right. But we're also going to talk about how to use your carboys, how to use your buckets, and really get the most out of your fermentation vessel of choice. So a really great lineup of shows we got coming up, and we'll just try to keep it coming at you. Stay tuned to the Brewing Network to find out about all that. Sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already.
Tomorrow, Jameel
show tomorrow morning, where we'll also be announcing our drawing winners for a 6-pack of Jameel's beer. And if you donated $50 or more, who might get to brew with Jameel. And that was part of our Linda Stark fundraiser. And again, hats off to you,
In the clean
folks.
room?
In the clean room.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's coming up tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. on the Jameel
What
Show.
about the Jameel raffle?
That's what we're talking about. That's tomorrow morning.
I thought he was just giving some beer away, not actually...
That too. He changed it. He said, okay, for $10 or more, I'll put you in a raffle for my 6-pack. For $50 or more, you're in a raffle for me to come brew with you.
Smoke it.
Or you to go to his house and brew with him there. So that's what we closed the polls last night, as they were, at midnight, and we'll put all the names in a hat. Jameel will be drawing them tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. on The Jameel Show, right here on the Brewing Network. Thanks for tuning in to our Sunday show, our Hell Freezes Over show, and we'll see you next week, eh?
Yeah.
You're here next week,
Yeah,
right,
I'm here
Tom?
next week.
All right. Next week it is. Take care, everybody. Be safe.
Homebrew, don't you really love that homebrew? Can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all of the time. Yeah, I think I'll have me. Well, I'll have me one right now. Give me a wheat beer on a hot summer day. A bark will do me when the skies are gray. I'll take a Belgian brew anytime, and the women sing the lambic fine. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love that homebrew? Can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all of the time. Yeah, I think I'll have me. Well, I'm the one right now. Cherry stout, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want